On Thursday and Friday of last week, I was the guest host of the Wendy Bell Radio Program for 6 hours. Today on Patriot TV Premieres, we're going to show you all the essential 2 hours, the most important ones, the ones that make the most sense, including interviews with the great and amazing journalists John Solomon and Drew Berquist, as well as California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton. There were some bombshells dropped last week that we need to go over today here on Patriot TV Premieres.
Filling in for Wendy Bell from Patriot TV, J.D. Rucker.
Hello, my friends and my new friends, and welcome to another episode of the Wendy Bell Radio Program. We are super blessed to be here, and by we, I'm using that as a royal because I'm here alone. Brock's here all the time. I am J.D. Rucker. I am your guest host, fill-in host, whatever you want to call me, a backup, I guess. The backup quarterback gets to come in when the quarterback has already done his thing and made them win. But I'm super, super blessed and pleased to be here. This is an amazing show. It always has been. I've been watching Wendy Bell Radio for so long. Brock had said before we went on air, he said, I used to listen to JD a lot. He has not listened to me nearly as much as I've listened to him and Wendy. So yeah, this is a true honor. We titled today's show, Cleaning Up the Swamp. And I can't think of a better way to start, because we are here, you and me have to help. It's so important to understand that. President Trump, I think, we got him elected. Awesome. And he can go out there and he can do a whole lot to clean up the swamp, but he can only do a portion of that. And when I say he, I'm talking about even his entire administration. He needs help from them, of course. And I think that his cabinet has been very, very excellent so far, but he does need outside help. And as an example, and there's many examples, but just as an example, President Trump can't do a whole lot about Congress. Okay. And if you don't realize that Congress is part of the swamp, maybe one of the most integral parts of the swamp, then you haven't been paying attention. And it doesn't matter whether it's Democrats or Republicans. Okay. If you've got Democrats in, they do it openly. If you've got Republicans in, the rhinos, they do it behind the scenes. It's kind of like open carry versus concealed carry. Okay. When the Democrats, when they're in charge on Capitol Hill, it's like open carry. It's like, we know, we see them come along. It's like, oh yeah, no, they're carrying, they're the swamp, right? But when Republicans take over, it's like, yes, victory, we did it. We've got control of the House, we've got control of the Senate, we've got President Trump in office, good times are ahead. But then we have to remember that the Republicans are sort of like the close or the concealed carry version of the swamp. Sure, they'll go along with this, they'll go along with that. But at any moment, sometimes at the most crucial time, they'll pull out that concealed weapon and they'll shoot down something. Perfect example, of course, was Obamacare, right? I mean, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan were able to repeal Obamacare like 51 times when they knew that Barack Obama was just going to veto it. Oh my gosh, we're going after this. We're going to get rid of Obamacare. This is it. Well, what did they do? The moment that they finally had somebody who would sign it, it's like, oh well, hold on, wait a second. I know that we just passed 51 of these, but now this one's actually going to be real. So I don't know. Let's stall and let's have 5 or 6 different options out there, and let's fumble around. And then we got one. This one looks like it might actually pass. Quick, tell John McCain to go do his thing, and he did. And so Obamacare exists today. And later on in the show, we'll actually be discussing that because I think it's important. But first, just a quick, an intro, I guess. A lot of people, most people, maybe none of you know who I am. As the radio voice said before I came on, I am J.D. Rucker. I am the president of Patriot.TV, where we run the Wendy Bell Show. I had to bring her show on into the network in order to get today's show to have this. And I'm just kidding. They didn't hold that over me. But I do run that, and we are We are rebuilding it, I'd say. And it's been going very well so far. We've got some amazing hosts. We're about to go to, here within the next month and a half, we'll go to our second stream. So we got one stream 24/7. We'll go to a second stream once we accumulate enough high quality shows. We're very picky. They have to love America. That's basically the only criteria. We've got some people, I would say, well, the vast majority of them are big time Trump supporters, but we got a couple of them that aren't. And it's like, well, do we keep them? And they were asking me, and I'm like, yeah, we got to keep them because they're putting out an important message. We might disagree with parts of it, but they're still patriots. And so we'll keep them for now. Who knows? Maybe we'll dump them. Don't tell them that, though. But yeah, no, we're doing very well. But where most people, when they talk about me, 9 times out of 10, they refer to me with my editor-in-chief status over at The Liberty Daily. If you've never gone, thelibertydaily.com. It's a news aggregator. It's where, we get about 11, 12 million visitors a month. And it's a Drudge knockoff. Okay. It's not my site. So people contact me all the time. And they're like, what is this? What are you doing with this? I keep getting called names on X because of things that go up there. I'm like, guys, I'm just the editor. Okay. I don't own the site. People complain to me about some of the ads. I'm like, I don't run the ads. I'm just the editor. I don't even touch the site until like 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then I run it on the weekends. But even then, a lot of the content does come from other sources that I have to publish, even if I disagree. So the way that I tell people is basically if they start complaining about a piece of content, I say, if the content that you like on Liberty Daily, that's me. And the content that you were offended by or that you don't like, that's somebody else. Somebody else put that up there. I have no control. Don't blame me. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But no, we try to do a great job, and that's part of why I'm here today, and why I hope that you all will continue to listen all the way through for the entire 3 hours, because we are going to be talking about draining the swamp. But as I noted, Congress is part of the swamp, and President Trump can't do anything about it at all. But you know who can? You can, and I can. We can help to take down the swamp with our midterm election votes. And to be very clear, the most important part of taking down the swamp during the midterm election votes is the primary season. The reason that we have this concealed carry versus open carry concept or paradigm in Congress is because we got the Democrats that have, they're 100% just gone. But then we have on the Republican side, we have enough rhinos to keep it to where it's still part of the uniparty swamp. So we can't just sit back and say, we'll just wait till the general election. People tend to not pay very much attention to the primaries during the midterms. This time we must. This will determine, and I want you to know something about me. Everybody always says, this is the most important election of our lifetimes. This is the most important midterms of our lifetimes. This is the most. I never, ever say that. You can go back years and you'll notice that I was like, yeah, this is important. This is a big one, but it's not the most important. I always tell people that until now. This midterm election might be the most important of our lifetimes. And when I say might, it is. I'll just call it. It is. It's not just about a continuation of President Trump's agenda, because if we lose the midterms, his agenda is done. Okay, the best he can do is have executive orders that get shot down. That's it. It's not just about a continuation of his agenda. It's about preparing for the next, we'll call it 8 to 12 years. The midterm elections will dramatically influence what happens in the 2028 elections and the next at least 2 or 3 elections. Because if, let's say that we lose, there are certain things that Congress can do that does not need presidential approval. Those certain things that they can do, they will use to hurt us. And most importantly, to prevent us from being able to stop the stealing of elections. I know that we're on radio and I'm probably already going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm one of those crazy conspiracy theorists that believes that the 2020 election was stolen, that believes that the 2022 election, parts of it, that those were stolen, that they would have stolen the 2024 election if they were closer. The only reason they didn't, in my humble opinion, is because they were like, okay, well, we can't do Joe. I don't know. Let's try to assassinate Trump. Oh, crap, we missed. And oh, my gosh, what are we going to do with Joe? And get Joe out of there. We got to put somebody in there. We'll get, we'll get Mark Kelly. Yeah, we'll get either Mark Kelly or Josh Shapiro. And then Joe Biden on his way out, he's like, okay, well, if you're going to push me out, then I'm going to endorse Kamala. And you're not going to be able to do anything about it. And you guys are going to be stuck with her. And then you're going to lose. I think that's what happened. And I think, it's funny because the note, if you ever check it, his notice, his letter that he said that he was going to end his campaign, it's definitely a very different signature than what we're so used to through AutoPen. That was not an AutoPen signature. I don't know if it was even his signature. It could have been Hunter's, but that doesn't matter. Point is that derailed it. And at that point, from that point on, they hid Kamala because that's their tactic. They hid Kamala for a month, and then they finally brought her out, and it's like, oh crap, hide her again. Quick, get rid of her. We can't, don't let her talk. Quick, call 60 Minutes. Tell them to edit that out. And then when it came closer to the election, they started looking at the numbers, doing their internal polling, which, to be clear, internal polling in both parties is like 10 times more accurate than even Rasmussen, which is usually relatively accurate. The most accurate public polls aren't even close. They know who's going to win or lose ahead of time. Look, I get it. If you've ever tried, quote unquote, survival food or long-term storage food provided by any of those discount survival companies out there, chances are you've come to the conclusion that, no, it's not very good. And you might believe that that's just the case for all survival food, but it's just not. Patriot TV works with an extraordinarily high quality and not very expensive, to be fair, shockingly low priced survival food company called Heaven's Harvest. You can check them out by going to patriot.tv/food. That's patriot.tv/food and use promo code Patriot at checkout and you'll get a nice discount. They're all American, okay, locally sourced, heirloom seeds. They've got the works. Check them out. Go to patriot.tv/food and check out why Heaven's Harvest is just so much better than everybody else. Wow. I got to, during the break, I got to run over and grab a bottle of water. I did not realize how dehydrating doing radio is. It's very dehydrating. I've gone through a bottle and a half of water in the first however long it's been. So for 45 minutes, crazy. But yeah, now we are back. Super excited to be here on the Wendy Bell Radio Show. It is your host, your guest host, JD Rucker. And we are super excited. Here in about 8 minutes or so, 10, I don't know how long. I don't know how the breaks work, but after the next break, we're going to have the great and wonderful John Solomon on with us. So I'm doing my thing, and I keep looking over. Is he back? Is he here yet? Is he here? We'll see. But let's talk about JD Vance. JD Vance, for those who missed it, JD Vance got a nice endorsement as the likely torchbearer for 2028. And of course, I'm talking about President Trump. Craig Ducey. Ducey asked the president, he said, you said this morning that you probably won't be running for a third term. This is great. I love talks about third terms. This weekend, Secretary of State Rubio said that he thought J.D. Vance would be a great nominee. You could clear the entire Republican field right now. Do you agree that the heir apparent to MAGA is J.D. Vance? And Trump said, and I don't do Trump impersonations very well, so I'm not going to try it. Trump said, well, I think most likely, in all fairness, he's the vice president. I think Marco is also somebody that maybe would get together with JD in some form. In other words, what he's hinting at is he pictures a ticket of JD Vance and Marco Rubio. Now, I don't know what you all think. I really, really like JD Vance. He still has to prove himself. Okay. He wasn't never Trumper. We know that. He's explained how he came about. I get that, and I accept that, right? I'm not one that says, oh, you can't change your mind after like 8 years. No, of course. I mean, you can. You learn. I had challenges with Trump. I had major challenges with Trump when he was a candidate. And then by mid-2017, literally everything had wiped away. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was wrong. My concerns were more biblical than anything else. And the people kept telling me, giving me reasons. We're not electing the Pope in chief. And it's like, that's true. And he's gonna grow and blah blah blah. And yeah, that's true. And he did. I mean, I would say that he is more. I don't want to say religious. He's more biblically informed today than he was in 2016. I think that's with a certainty, and especially after the first assassination attempt. I hope, and I pray to God that opened his eyes fully if they weren't open already. And his demeanor changed, everything changed. So back to JD Vance, though. I like him. I think he's a solid guy. He's a guy, checks all the boxes. Okay, came from humble beginnings, very humble beginnings, self-made. Worked his way up, worked his way in, served our nation in the military. Very smart, wicked smart dude. He really is truly, legitimately intelligent. There's a lot of people that come across as intelligent who aren't really all that intelligent. Then there's other people that are intelligent and come across dumb. Okay. But JD Vance, he sounds intelligent, and he is intelligent. And so, we'll see. I don't have any question marks. I guess I just still want to see more from him before endorsing him, and I wouldn't endorse him until I see who else is running anyway. But I can picture this ticket, this concept of JD Vance and with Marco Rubio as his running mate. Now, the thing about Marco, though, I was a huge fan of Marco Rubio when he first got elected. And then I would argue, he was probably my first Tea Party betrayal. Okay, when he joined the Gang of Eight, when he started chumming around with John McCain, he started calling for amnesty. It's like, whoa. You were our guy. You were the guy that was supposed to carry the Tea Party torch all the way through, and now you're calling for amnesty. Now you're Gang of Eight. Now they're trotting you around like a poster boy. Oh, Marco. Oh, little Marco. What did you do? What have you done? And then he did some things, especially in regards to Ukraine as a senator, said some things and did some things. It's like, I don't know, man. This guy's pretty bad. And I went, my opinion of Marco Rubio went from pretty high. I would say if I was rating him, I'd put him at about an 80 to, by the time before President Trump announced him as his pick for Secretary of State, I would say I would have put him at about a 40. And you might say, oh, that's too high. And I'll tell you, it's a graded scale. And we're grading on a curve here. And I can only put him at a 40 because there's so many other Rhino senators that were actually worse than him. At least he did do some good things. There's a lot of senators, Lindsey Graham, who have never, ever, ever done anything good unless they were incentivized to do so. Mitch McConnell. So, yeah, you get the idea. But then when he was announced as Secretary of State, I'm like, what? This is crazy. This is horrible. And then he got in as Secretary of State, and I started seeing what he's doing. It's like, well, that's not bad. Okay. Yeah, I can see that. I disagree with that, but I understand it. Every action that he's taken seems to align with President Trump's. And that's the important key, is that he seems to be an aggressive fulfiller of President Trump's agenda on the international side. Now, I think people put a little bit too much emphasis on Secretary of States from a policymaking perspective. In reality, they, as well as like the ambassador to the UN, these people they're messengers. That's it. So, yeah, I can see VP Marco Rubio. After the break, we'll have the great and wonderful and amazing John Solomon right here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program.
Wendy Bell, America's anchor mom, fighting for America 1 hour at a time. Welcome to the family.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with health care and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
3 hours of bold truth and excellence. You've just signed up for the WBR Army. Strap in. This is the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Filling in for Wendy Bell from Patriot TV, J.D. Rucker.
Patriot TV and the Liberty Daily. We can't forget that part. Awesome stuff. And by the way, that was excluded by my request. I did it for a reason, and now I regret it. So it's like, all right, just say it. Liberty Daily or Patriot.tv. But I don't want to waste any time because I've got limited time with our next guest, who's somebody that, by golly, doesn't need an introduction, not to the Wendy Bell Radio Show. Mr. John Solomon, the greatest journalist in America. How are you doing, my friend?
I am well. Honored to be with you, JD. Love all the things you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it's funny because Brock had told you the story. You know, he said, "Yeah, you know, I go to your site all the time. I love it." Yeah. He had actually they were talking about you yesterday. Okay, this is a true story. They were talking about you during the show yesterday. The guest host and Brock were talking about you specifically in your site. And then like 2 or 3 minutes later, he gets an email from me. It's like, "Hey, I'd like to have John on the show tomorrow." And he's like, "What? How's this?" You know, it's like mind
so cool.
blown.
So cool.
So I don't want to waste time. I want to get into some stories.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I want to go straight into. Let me get your perspective first, because I know the story that I want to talk about, but I want to get, you know, you're the man with the finger on the pulse of everything that's happening out there. So why don't you start? And what story do you want to talk about that's really on your radar that may be coming out later? Maybe it's already out. What do you think?
Well, listen, I enjoyed the conversation you guys were having before the break there when we started. There is an enormous amount of synergy going on. The FBI and the CIA and the ODNI now for the first time giving us the secrets that maybe some people in Congress knew behind closed doors, but we, the American people, didn't. And once you get those data points, once you get those well locked away secrets, you really start to understand how consequential the period of 2016 to 2024 was. We have had political dirty tricks in America for as long as America's been around. The very first presidential elections were pretty rough and tumble. We had some pretty good dirty tricks in Congress, but never before in the history of our government did we ever imagine that the FBI and the CIA and the intelligence community would be involved in perpetrating a political dirty trick, in deceiving the American public using the tools that we gave them to protect the country. And those tools, psychological operations, intelligence, monitoring, and surveillance, were turned against the American people so that Hillary Clinton could try to beat Donald Trump when she failed, so she'd have a victimology excuse why she lost, and then to make sure that Donald Trump wouldn't succeed from 2017 to 2024. That is what we now have established as fact. It's no longer in doubt. And I think the only question left for the American public is, all right, it's bad or worse than we thought when we started unraveling this 6-7 years ago. Will there be any consequence? Because if we don't have a consequence, and I mean a severe consequence to the people who perpetrated it, we're going to go from the greatest constitutional republic in American history to the greatest banana republic in the world. And I think that's the big concern I have. These perpetrators have gotten away with this for so long that the norm for them is we should just do this again and again and again. We have to find a way to create a deterrence. And this next year, or our generation will have failed the future generations of America.
100%. So everybody will ask you, then? Who do we go after? My question instead is, how do we go after them? So you got James Comey subpoenaing all these people. You got the Department of Justice. You got DNI's doing this. What is the pathway that will take us from wherever we are today to investigations charges, arrests, prosecutions, and jail time? What's our best method?
I have thought for a while now that this is at such an epic level that it is the scandal of our generation. I'll just stop for a second, remind everybody who might be a little too young to remember Watergate. But the moment Republicans abandoned Richard Nixon in 73, 74 was when they learned that he had asked the CIA to try to stop the FBI from investigating the break-in. He actually didn't get the CIA to do it. The mere fact that he contemplated using it caused his entire party to abandon him and led to the ultimate resignation and one of the epic scandals of our time frame. We are so far past asking the CIA to do something. We have the FBI and the CIA both doing things outside their legal authority, outside the factual basis on which they were allowed to act, outside the rules that govern their thing. And the Democratic Party's like, it's the Russian disinformation. We don't care. That is a really shocking moment to the conscience. So I think we're at a moment where we need a truth commission, a commission of people that, each Congress and each chairman runs out and they do their thing and they're good at it. They get a little bit here. This deserves something a lot bigger. And I think you get a truth commission that is impaneled by Congress. So anyone who lies before that panel can be immediately charged with perjury. And then separate of that, I think you take what I see going in motion now, a little slow and a little clunky for my taste. And I do think there are some concerns about just the day-to-day operations of the Justice Department now. But you take that grand conspiracy case that Kash Patel laid out. He wrote it back in April with career agents. Career agents put it together. And you go back and you treat the last 8 or 9 years as an ongoing criminal conspiracy to violate the civil liberties of Americans using the color of government authority. In other words, you treat the FBI and the CIA and those actors just like we treated the racist cops who beat black citizens during the civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s. You turn that around because the danger to civil liberties is as bad today, what the FBI and CIA did, as what we did to African Americans back in the 50s and 60s. And on my show the other night, that's exactly what Harmeet Dillon said she thinks is going to happen. She thinks we're going to have criminal civil rights cases against some of the major actors in our government.
We are on with John Solomon from justthenews.com, as well as he's on Real America's Voice. And then everybody and their dog is wanting to interview him because he's been just dropping bombshells. He is the investigative journalist of investigative journalists in my book. So then we go back to the original question. I think we've talked about the the possibility. I know there's a lot of hopium, a lot of theories about, well, if we do this, realistically, quick answer, is there a chance or not really?
I think Barack Obama will not be criminally charged for the actions that he committed when he was in office. I think the president's immunity ruling from a year ago, President Trump's immunity, is pretty clear. There are only two consequences for acts in office, and that is civil litigation after you leave or impeachment. And those two babies have left the barn a long time ago. So I do think that Barack Obama faces an extraordinary amount of peril if Pam Bondi and the Justice Department, if Congress has the courage to confront a former president the way he needs to be confronted based on his behavior. We have a story up today. I think it's a smoking gun. It's a little story that speaks volumes about where Barack Obama is. He gives an interview. He's exiting the administration in December of 2016. He gives an interview to one of his favorite media, NPR. And in that, he already knows that the CIA is going to conclude that Donald Trump was aided by Vladimir Putin. Now, keep in mind, that's not what the intelligence community thinks at that moment. And, oh, by the way, that assessment isn't even done yet. It's just beginning. He already knows. So there's only two possibilities. Either Barack Obama was somehow clairvoyant and we missed it during his presidency, or he knew the fix was in. And it's such a telling moment because first he says it really clearly, like the CIA is going to conclude this. And then he ends the interview and he comes back and like, oh, I got to walk that back a little bit. They're still looking at it, but I bet you they'll come up to that. He has to walk it back because he let the cat out of the bag. It is such an extraordinary moment to think that the president of the United States was willing to hijack an official product of the intelligence community and then accidentally let the cat out of the bag, had to walk it back in a classic Obama fashion. He actually was willing to hijack the intelligence community assessment simply to give himself and Hillary Clinton an excuse for why they lost the election. No, they didn't lose it because they didn't do enough to convince Wisconsin and Michigan and other battleground states. They lost it because Vladimir Putin stole the election from us. By the way, no evidence of that, but he was willing to hijack that. That's the president that Congress has to confront. His peril is not that he'll be charged for what he did in 2016. His peril is if he is brought before a grand jury, if he is brought before a congressional committee, if he doesn't tell the truth, he can be charged criminally for lying. And that he's in the Mike Flynn conundrum that he tried to create himself in 2017, just before he left office. They conspired in the Oval Office to maybe walk Mike Flynn into a perjury trap. Now he faces a perjury trap. Does he admit to what he did and sully his reputation for history, which is obviously what former presidents care about, their legacy, or does he tell or does he lie and risk the possibility of being indicted? That is, I think, the extraordinary moment that if Justice Department and Pam Bondi do their job right, Barack Obama could face. He needs to be put under oath and he needs to be questioned. What did you know? When did you know it? And why did you do these things that are now publicly provable?
This is the way. This is the way. And it's funny because I've only heard a couple people talk about it. I'm glad you brought it up. Basically, you give them a binary choice. Either expose yourself as a criminal that we can't touch, but at least you're exposed, or go to jail. And that's go to jail, not for those crimes, but for the new crime you committed because your ego is way too high. One thing where I will note, to add to what you said earlier, as far as the reason that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton did it, I think Hillary Clinton for sure just wanted an excuse. I think Barack Obama wanted to plant a poison pill for the rest of President Trump's first term, and this was the easiest way to do that. It's like, drop this. That way he's dealing with that, and he doesn't have time to look into the shenanigans that we got into. So very good stuff there. We're on with John Solomon. Coming up on a break, I believe. It looks like it. Yeah, we're coming up on a break here. So I'm going to do flash round with you. I'm going to say a name. You tell me just yes or no if you think, and we can expand on it later. But you tell me yes or no if you think that they're going to face consequences. Hillary Clinton.
Yes. She's going to have a difficult couple of years.
Okay. John Brennan.
Yes, definitely.
Clapper.
To be determined. I think we need to know more about what he knew when he knew it, but I think he's on the radar of people that's going to be put before a grand jury.
Perfect. Well, that gives me everything I need, because those two, the one that you picked out, that's
James Comey
for us to talk about.
I want to put James Comey on the table.
Dang it. Now
Sorry, I wrote you.
No, it's your fault. You're going to have to stay
it
for a third segment now.
All right.
All right. No, just teasing. All right. Great. So we're on with John Solomon. He'll be right back after the break. If you're like me, you don't necessarily like to go to the doctor unless you absolutely have to. I know a lot of you out there don't go to the doctor at all. That's great. Some of you love to go to the doctor. That's great. We all have our preferences. Our medical needs are fulfilled. We live in a nation where, despite all of the challenges we have, we still have the best bad option when it comes to healthcare. But sometimes you know exactly what you need. For example, if you need ivermectin, if you need antibiotics or UTI treatments or chronic meds or symptom relief medications. This is why we work with our fantastic partners over at Jace Medical. You can learn more about them and work with them by going to patriot.tv/meds. That's patriot.tv/meds. And you can pick up a whole bunch of things. They got tons of products now, and I know there's a lot of companies out there that offer similar products, but these guys have been doing it for a very long time. They are the OGs, so to speak, and they have been able to innovate and advance in ways that other companies simply can't. They get mimicked a lot, they get copied a lot, but you can't do better than what they have over at Jace Medical. Their Jace case, for example, has improved. It used to just be 5 antibiotics, and that's great. That was important. I've had 2 of them. But now they've added another 5 for symptom relief meds, vital symptom relief medications. Of course, the aforementioned ivermectin. They have kits for cruises if you're going on a cruise this summer. Man, so many different options they have. Go to patriot.tv/meds, patriot.tv/meds, and see how their telehealth system is able to work for you. They just send the meds to you via mail. It's awesome. And best of all, you don't have to go to the doctor. Oh, we are back, and I'm so glad that we're back here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program because we've got one of my favorite human beings. It's not just one of my favorite journalists, one of my favorite human beings in the world. When I get a text at 4 a.m, I am about 90% sure that it's going to be Mr. John Solomon with some kind of news that's going to be it's going to blow my mind, and it always does. It's like I'm not kidding. It's like dude, my phone. It's like, oh, there he is. Oh crap! I got to get to the computer.
It's true.
That actually happened this morning. You did? Well, I'm good. I'm up. I'm kidding. I wasn't in bed. But we actually did put that up on the show or on what's it called, on the Liberty Daily. It's like as soon as you got that up, it's like, oh my gosh, I'll throw that over there. So before the break, you said that there's certain people that we do expect consequences from. Let's start with the first one, and I hate starting with her because it's just too easy, but by golly, we need to. Let's start with, what do you think first, what did she do? And second, what do you think she's at risk of having? And we are, of course, talking about Hillary Clinton.
She's in danger of sticking with her current cover story, the story that is that information intercepted by the Russians and then intercepted by us, that she approved a plan to go after Donald Trump. She's going to double down and say, that's not true. I didn't do it. There's a problem. In her book, she admitted she did it. In her speeches and in their op-eds and in their television interviews, all of the deputies around her admitted she did it. And they're going to have to either say they were lying in 2016 or they're lying now. And I think the American people will say, the danger for her, she's going to try to keep the cover story that she is holding on to, clinging to right now, which is, I didn't approve any plan. There was no plan. But that's not what history has shown factually. But more importantly, she and her top lieutenants, John Podesta and Jennifer Palmieri and others around her and herself in her own book, they admitted that she approved a plan to hang a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's house. And I think also approved a plan probably to get the FBI involved. And I think that her peril is that she'll try to preserve her reputation and potentially take the risk of lying to some institution. I think that's the peril. Now, hopefully she comes clean in the midst of what she did. We'll see if that happens, but that's her peril right now. It's her campaign that masterminds the beginning of really what was a 9-year weaponization conspiracy.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the buzz around DC, around conservative journalists, is that if you were to pick one person who's most likely to get in trouble, that would be John Brennan. Do you agree with that assessment?
Potentially. Listen, he's pretty wily and before a grand jury. And you can see this in the Durham interview. He was very skilled at obfuscating and avoiding a direct perjury thing. He's very tricky. He's well trained in the art of intelligence and evasion. So we'll have to see. There's no doubt he played such a crucial role. And with the right sort of inquisitor, a really strong prosecutor walking him through it, he either is going to confirm the entire plot or face a risk of prosecution. He also risks, I think, having to eat all the things he's been saying on MSNBC if he tries to tell the truth. And that's going to hurt him with his liberal crowd that he hangs out with and makes his money on now. So one of the key things here is that whoever's going to be on this strike force, you want to get your best inquisitors, your best interrogators, your best agents, because you're going up against some formidable opponents. John Brennan's no slouch. Hillary Clinton's no slouch. And they're going to have the best $1,000 an hour lawyers they can get. So you want to get your best people to get to the truth. Whether this turns out to be criminal or not, I think will depend on the quality of the people that are appointed to it. The Justice Department is very short of personnel right now. They got rid of some of the deep staters. They've been unable to get people through the process at the cenate. The Senate has left the Justice Department in a very difficult circumstance of being understaffed, while perhaps taking on one of the biggest conspiracy cases since maybe the mob or the early Colombian cartel cases. So there is a chance to falter, and I worry about that when I look at this.
So we can blame John Thune if nothing happens. As long as we got somebody to blame. Last one, James Comey.
Yeah,
listen, we're gonna have to get to him after We're gonna have to get to him after the break. I'm
Okay.
hearing it. So we'll be right back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program with the great and wonderful John Solomon. We are back, and we are excited, very excited, to be talking about the topic that we're talking about today. I don't know if we were able to keep John Solomon or not, but we're going to assume there he is.
Yeah, I got just a couple minutes, but I want to wrap some stuff up with you. That'd be great.
Wrap some stuff up with me, and then you can disappear whenever you want. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. Listen, I think you've asked all the right questions. You understand this better. Anyone who reads the Liberty Daily, you've understood this scandal from the day it started. The next 6 months will determine whether we get any accountability or whether we go through another Durham experience or another Mueller experience. A lot rests on Pam Bondi, a lot rests on Kash Patel and their ability to work together. If they work together and follow the facts, I think Americans will get an extraordinary moment. Congress needs to create that truth commission. If we don't, all we're going to do is hand to the next generation a giant mess. The American experience will be forever changed because the temptation to do what Hillary started and what Jack Smith continued all the way through 24 will only be greater because there's no consequence. There's no reason not to do it. You're not going to get punished. So our generation has an unbelievable moment of history right now, and how we act will define the future history of this country. I don't know whether people be charged whether crimes were committed yet. That's for prosecutors and the grand jury to decide. But I do know the American people deserve some accountability and some deterrence. I hope they get it.
I hope they get it too. God, Lord willing. John Solomon, the great and wonderful investigative reporter. You can find him at justthenews.com. You can find him on Real America's Voice. I like to follow him myself over on X at jsolomonreports.com. And I'm going to expand on this. I'm going to write an article later talking about truth commissions. So I'll send it to you, and we'll put the show in there. Brother, thank you, and God bless you.
Great to be with you, JD. Love the show.
Take it. He is truly, legitimately not just one of the best investigative journalists, but also I would argue he is one of the best just politically minded people out there. You know, there's a lot of people that would be good journalists, and there's a lot of people that would be good politicians. There's a few people who I think would be great at both, and I think John Solomon does that. So we're going to go ahead and launch the John Solomon 2028 campaign. He doesn't know this yet, but we're going to recruit him, and we're going to see if we can't get him in there into some office. I think he would make a fantastic senator myself, and we got plenty of bad senators to replace. That's my story. So, and I am going to write that, by the way. You guys can check it out. It'll be over at patriot.tv as well as the libertydaily.com. I'm going to write up an article about just run with his idea about truth commissions and see where that takes us. But we got more to talk about. Let's move on to the next story. This one's a quick one. I like this one. This is one that Brock had sent me. Now, this is from Amuse, the Amuse account on X. It's DEI-ing of the judiciary. We talk about DEI. We talk about all this wokeness, and we're seeing, in a lot of industries, it's like starting to wane. In some places, it's actually just blowing up. It's no longer a factor. We've, of course, and I'm not going to mention her name because everybody and their dog has been mentioning her name, but there is a certain American Eagle spokesperson who has helped, I would say, greatly to not only raise the stock prices for American Eagle and probably sell a whole bunch of jeans, but it has also helped to expose the lunacy of wokeness. Look, wokeness is going to come back if we allow it to. It's not dead yet. I think a lot of people, I see articles every day. Woke is dead. DEI is dead. They're not dead. Okay, these things don't just die, even if you do everything you can to kill them. They're like zombies. They're like vampires. You think they're gone, but then they keep coming back, right? Well, these are going to come back if we don't fully expose them. So we have to continue every day to reward those who are doing right and to oppose those who are doing wrong. I'm a big fan of, putting your money where your mouth is, right? I'm a big fan of voting with your feet. I'm a big fan of all these various little, we'll call them micro tactics that we can use in our lives. But there's one area where we have a little bit of a challenge where we can't really do much about it, nor can President Trump do much about it. And unfortunately, it's one of those scenarios where we're going to have to live with it until something else happens, and that is in the judiciary. I remember it was back in, I don't know, probably it was over a decade ago. I was talking to Daniel Horowitz, who's a journalist he was with Conservative Review. He still is with Conservative Review, and he's also with The Blaze. And we were talking. I asked him one day, I said, what is your biggest concern? He said, judicial tyranny. And he said, most importantly, the manufactured diversity that we were seeing at that time under Obama that is going to destroy the judiciary. And I'll tell you what he said here in a second, but I want to go to this post. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that 1/3, 33% of DC judges were not born in the United States? Now, look, I myself am a legal immigrant, okay? Technically, my mother brought me to this country legally. I have no dual citizenship. I am an American. My father was an American in the Air Force, okay, Clark Air Force Base. My mother was Filipino. He brought us over when I was an infant, and here I am. So technically speaking, I know I'm technically a natural born citizen, but I'm still an immigrant because I was born abroad. So when I say this, I want you to know that I'm not saying this with any malice or anything like that. I think that a judge, which is an extremely powerful position, as we're learning right now, we're learning through all this judicial overreach, judicial tyranny. We're learning how powerful judges are. And for 1/3 of them to be foreign born, that doesn't make any sense. Not in Washington, D.C. or anywhere. I mean, at least get a generation or two in. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be he's being hateful. No, it's being logical. It's being someone who is concerned about what this means. Because here's the thing, and this is what Daniel Horowitz had told me when this was already happening in Obama, got exacerbated with Biden, and now we are where we are today. And it would have gotten worse had Kamala won. So praise God for that not happening. But even during Obama's days, he told me, he said, when you have people, it doesn't matter, they could have been Americans for the last 15, 20 years. If they have a memory of their hometown, if they have an identity with their home nation, if they have an identity with their home nation, even if they're American today, full-blown American citizens, you don't want them in the judiciary because there is that connection. They could do a lot of other things. They could do pretty much anything else, but not judges. Because you need judges who are constitutionally minded, okay? They have to know the law. They have to be qualified. But perhaps most importantly, they have to be, to some extent, patriotic to America. Now, this could be on the left and the right, okay? To be clear. Somebody can feel like, a judge can feel like they're doing their patriotic duty to, go after President Trump because they think he's a threat. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. But at least they're doing it because they're trying to do what they think is best for the nation. When you have judges who aren't born here, then you do have, even if it's a small bias, could be a huge bias, it could be a Trojan horse. But when you have judges that are born outside of the United States, especially if they have dual citizenship, that is a huge problem. You cannot trust their judgment when it comes to being judges over other people. Other jobs, great. Pretty much literally, just about any other job I'm okay with, but not with a judge. It's too important, and you need judges to be aligned. Again, I'm not talking about ideology. I'm talking about devotion and appreciation of the United States of America. And here's the kicker, this is, again, coming from Daniel Horowitz. The reason for this is because if somebody doesn't fully embrace the country, then there's zero chance that they will fully embrace the country's constitution. And that, my friends, is exactly what a judge is supposed to do. They're supposed to embrace and empower and defend the Constitution. They're supposed to interpret it as the founders had intended. And that can never, ever, ever happen properly with somebody whose allegiance is split. We already saw that congresswoman I forgot her name, But I mean, she was out there saying, "Oh, I'm America's second." I mean, she's literally telling people that she's in Congress, U.S. Congress, but that she doesn't even consider herself an American, really. How's that even possible? We're living in crazy times, folks. And I know I've talked a lot in this Draining the Swamp episode. I've talked a whole lot about the concept of, through fixing this through elections. But it can't just be through elections. We have so much more to do. Unfortunately, I take pride. I do. I take pride in the fact that I like to highlight stories that have an ending. And what I mean by an ending is they have a call to action. They don't have to be happy. They can be good stories, bad stories, positive, negative. But at the end of the day, I want a story that we can take something from it and take action. If it's just something simple like informing others about the truth, great. If it's something big like going out and protesting, voting, running for office, going and donating time or money or energy to those who need it, those are the types of actions that I want to talk about. And I've racked my brain after Brock sent this to me. I racked my brain trying to figure out what can we do about this challenge in the judiciary. We don't have people that we can elect or unelect. We don't have people that we can, except for the president. We don't have a way to protest them necessarily. It would be unrealistic to expect that we could get, anyone who would have the power to take these judges down. It'd be, there's nothing we can. It's very unlikely that we can have them removed. So what can we do about it? I hate using this word. I really do hate using this word. But in this case, nothing. We just have to be aware. We have to, I guess the best thing we can do is spread the word, but even that, I'm not sure what that would accomplish. With that said, there is something that we can do about every other story that we're going to talk about today. Let me pick out a winner here. Let's see. Do we have time? We don't have time. Let's see. Let me pick out a short winner here. Nah, they're all long winners. Oh, they're all winners. They're just long. So generally speaking, I don't like to rip on other conservative show hosts out there. I don't agree with them all the time, but I agree with most of them most of the time. So that's good, right? One thing I don't like is the fact that most of them, if not all of them, just about all of them, will utilize fear-mongering to promote their precious metal sponsor, their gold sponsor. Oh, the sky is falling. It's doom and gloom. Cats and dogs living together. They just want you to do whatever you can to get that quote-unquote free silver. Well, if you are sick of that, if you want to work with a company that I work with, a company that Patriot TV works with, a company that does not use fear-mongering or scare techniques or high-pressure sales tactics to try to get you to buy, then go to patriot.tv/gold, patriot.tv/gold, and talk to my friends over at Augusta Precious Metals. You will notice they are very different. I don't get a whole lot of time here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program, and I'm going to maximize it. So yeah, I'm going to surround myself with great people, including Drew Berquist, who's coming on here in about 8 minutes or so. So, but before he does, let's go ahead and get into this one. This one pertains to cut 3. Doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, and pharmaceutical giants profit by keeping Americans sick. Now, that's not J.D. Rucker speaking. Okay. That is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. speaking. And he had a whole lot more to say about that. Let's play that.
At every level, from the doctors, the hospitals, to the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, people make money by keeping Americans sicker. And today we have the sickest population in the world. More than 60% of our kids have chronic disease. When my uncle was president, I was a 10-year-old boy. It was 3%.
We're talking about 1960 to 1963.
Around, yeah. And today it's gone up to 60%. So about 8 in 10 American kids cannot qualify for military service. We have obesity crises. We have diabetes crises. The autism rates in our population in 1970, we had the largest epidemiological study ever performed, found that about 0.7, so less than 1 out of 10,000 Americans had autism. And today, the latest data from CDC, which is one of my agencies, is 1 in every 31 kids, 1 in about every 20 boys. In California, which has the best data collection of any state, we have probably the most accurate, so it's probably worse than this, is 1 in every 19 children has autism, and 1 every 12.8 boys. And so we need to really change, we need to pivot at this agency and make it, and begin at every level, changing these perverse incentives which make people rich by keeping us safe, and align the economic incentives of our agency with good public health, so that so doctors, hospitals, insurers, all get wealthy by actually making people healthier.
So the reason why I want to talk about this one, it's weird. It's like, wait a second. So he's talking about making all these people wealthier by making them healthier. And it's like, well, that sounds like who cares if they get wealthier? How about they just do okay, do whatever they're supposed to do, which, and I'm all in favor, by the way, of doctors and medical professionals making a lot of money. I'm not saying that we should reduce their pay or anything. What I'm saying is that why would HHS be talking about that? And the reason is because RFK Jr. got in there, like so many people, whenever they get into any of the departments, they generally get overwhelmed. And he did get overwhelmed, which is why I believe he had a little bit of a slow start, but he's been coming around the last 2.5 months. But he gets in there and he starts realizing, and maybe he knew a lot about this before, but once he starts, looking under the hood, it's like, oh, wow, it's actually worse than I thought. And that's the fact that the corruption, the cronyism that's inherent within government and insurance and big pharma, and you can throw in doctors and hospitals as well. So they're a component of it. But when you really, those big three, how can you fix that? And what he learned when he got in there, I believe, is that, okay, so if we stop all the corruption, then we lose control, and the corruption that's actually affecting our patients, our medical system here in the United States will actually explode. It'll explode with even more corruption. So we have to be a little corrupt so they won't be totally corrupt. And he's like, that doesn't make any sense. And he's like, how do we fix it? And this is what he's talking about. They are trying to fix it now in this method. But I want to explain, if I've got time. I think I got time. I want to explain real quick. And I'll go into more details tomorrow, by the way, about this. But I want to explain real quick why. You know what? I am going to save this for tomorrow. I know I just pissed everybody off. Tomorrow, when you hear me talk about this, you'll understand why this truly, legitimately. You know what? I'll just talk about it after the guest. How's that? You don't have to come back tomorrow. We've got Drew Berquist coming on here in a minute. I'll just talk about it then, because it is that important. We have to gain an understanding of the gargantuan, the mammoth. It's bigger than a mammoth. It's, a leviathan, we'll call it. The leviathan of corruption and crony capitalism that keeps our healthcare system from ever being fixed. I think he can fix it, but it's going to take help from Congress. And we'll talk about that after Drew Berquist, who's coming on next on the Wendy Bell Radio Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wendy Bell, America's anchor mom, fighting for America 1 hour at a time. Welcome to the family.
We're going to win so much. We're going to win at every level. We're going to win economically. We're going to win with the economy. We're going to win with military. We're going to win with health care and for our veterans. We're going to win with every single facet. We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
hours of bold truth and excellence. You've just signed up for the WBR Army. Strap in. This is the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Filling in for Wendy Bell from Patriot TV, J.D. Rucker.
That's me, J.D. Rucker, and I am here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Very blessed to be here because she's got one of my favorite shows. She's one of my favorite people. Brock, I think actually Brock might be my favorite person ever. And being here is a true blessing. But speaking of favorite people, somebody who's also not tired of winning, I'd like to introduce my friend, my partner in many ways, not the way that you guys are thinking. My partner in business and media, Drew Berquist. My friend Drew, have you ever been introduced in a way that already has a sexual innuendo?
I have, but not that particular way. I was like, reel this one in, JD. We gotta fix this one. But whatever. It's 2025. You guys can interpret it however you choose.
I don't reel anything in. I never fish. I haven't been fishing since I was 12. So for those who don't know, Drew Berquist, and you should know, by the way, but Drew Berquist is the host of This Is My Show with Drew Berquist here on Rumble and on other channels. It is a fantastic show, extraordinarily well produced, number one. Number two, just entertaining because they don't care. Okay, they don't care. They don't. You watch the show and you'll come on, You'll go in the show all sorts of mad, and by the time you leave the show, you're like, yeah, I don't care. It's fine. We'll make it. Yeah. Let's go watch some sports. So I love it. Drew, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, man. So I'm a former counterterrorism officer that somehow got into media. Worked for a lot of the three-letter agencies, mostly CIA, doing paramilitary and covert action stuff for them overseas. Spend most of my life deployed overseas doing that. Loved it, but I have 4 kids and a wife. So at some point it was someone else's turn to come and do it. And I got out, and then I landed in media, ended up having a show at Blaze TV after doing some national security commentary on Fox and some of those places. And here we are. Now I have a team, a production team, a show, a studio, all this, and I still don't quite know how I landed in it, but this is where we are.
Well, that's great stuff. Fantastic stuff. And we do have something in common. You have 4 kids and a wife. I have 4 wives and a kid. So we are very similar in that regard. Yeah, got it. All right. So what's happening in the world? I've been so focused on my show notes and getting everything going. I'm turning to you to say, hey, Rucker, let's talk about this. So what are we talking about today?
Well, thank you for springing that on me. Well, we can talk about whatever you want. I mean, I think that, right. I'll tell you what we were going to talk about, or what we are going to talk about today on the show. And if I sound off, I was up all night doing this show with these great guys, another operator and then another dude who served in the military. We had such a blast. But if my mind is frazzled, that's why, because I'm not used to not sleeping anymore. Apparently that's a young man's game. But we're going to talk about President Trump floating the idea of the National Guard in D.C. We're going to talk about just a lot of different issues surrounding that. We're going to talk about, what else are we getting into? Kamala and her book, and Joe Biden talking about the fact.
Stop right there.
All right, let's go.
Stop right there. You got a killer one. So for those who missed it, President Trump, there's been all this crime. Big Balls got beaten up. Big Balls was beaten down in D.C. by like 8 dudes who were beating up a woman. And crime is rampant. I think murders and everything are up like 111% or something crazy like that. Now President Trump is out there saying he's thinking about sending the military, the National Guard in. Now, as somebody who is deeply aware of all those things, all the potentials there, what are your thoughts? Good idea, police state? It can go in either direction for me, but what do you think?
I have my concerns. I see totally why people would be gung-ho about that and say, hell yeah, we've got to go this route. We've got to lock things down. They will do a better job potentially. And I see why the advisors advising President Trump, and even why President Trump would think that. I do think it's a slippery slope, though, and I think that it's you got to think next level. Okay, cool. We need to do something. All right, let's agree that we need to do something. What that something is, though, could be a multitude of things. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have all the best answers on how to run DC. I think it's just such a dumpster fire that it's a hard problem to solve for anyone. But my concern with the National Guard element is, if next order of magnitude, okay, we're not in power again. This is great right now. This feels really good. We're winning. The border's closed. The economy's great. The foreign policy is supremely well. We're going to talk about that today, too, on the show. All the stuff with Russia. But what about when we're not in power and when we know that the other side, and really not even the other side, I think just the establishment in general would love a police state, would love to federalize law enforcement and how cities are controlled and managed throughout the country, which obviously is not really how it was designed to be. So I see the understanding, the value and why the administration might be considering it. I tend to think that it's maybe not the best idea.
Seems like more of a threat than anything else. I would be surprised if it happened. But what makes DC unique is that it could happen. You can't. President can't go. Not that he can't, but it's not very easy to go just start federalizing this city or that city or whatever. But right. DC, he actually could, and that's something where the crime is rampant. Is there a solution outside of sending in troops and I'm not talking about, just, increase cops or whatever. Is there a real legitimate solution? We got Bowser in there, Democrat controlled city. Do you foresee anything that can be done to actually truly mitigate the massive amounts of crime? Because it really has gotten bad or worse faster than other places that were bad. Right. I mean, it's actually like becoming sort of an epicenter of crime, very similar to how Detroit was and at certain points, and New Orleans and Baltimore, and now San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. Well, DC is the latest sexy when it comes to hey, let's go commit crimes there. They won't do anything about it. How do we fix that?
Well, you bring up Detroit. One way would be RoboCop. If we could do that, that would be awesome. Just hearkening back to those days. But no, I think this is really simple. I say simple, nothing's that simple, but we never start with, particularly in these cities where it's spiked. And you're right, DC has been on an impressive ascension here with their crime with, hey, what if we just let our guys do their job and enforce the laws? Because it always happens in these blue Democrat cities where you've got woke leadership who has not only told people they can't enforce the laws, but they've encouraged crime with the criminals that are out there on the streets, and for other criminals to come in, because it's like, I can get away with robbing someone, mugging someone, doing whatever, and they get away with it. So you're not allowing law enforcement officers to actually do their job that they signed up, swore an oath to do. They want to do it. And then you demoralize them and they leave. And you see this in a lot of these blue cities also. You see early retirements, you see recruiting struggles, you see all of those issues. So at the end of the day, okay, you could get to the point where the National Guard is necessary. I agree with you. I think it's more of a threat than anything else, but there's so many steps in between. And it starts with, hey, it's like the border. It's remarkable how the border works when we enforce the laws, and CBP and ICE and all the different elements under DHS are allowed to do the job they want to do. It's really the same. I know there's complexities to that, and it's never that easy, but it's the same with law enforcement at the local level.
Very true, 100%. So your show yesterday, which if anybody wants to see it, it's actually going to be playing right after the Wendy Bell Radio Show, because I plugged it in as our, I think it was either the first or second episode during Patriot TV Premieres today, but they can watch that. You were talking about Jasmine Crockett, and I want to get your perspective. Jazzy, I just call her Jazz. Or just dumb, but yeah, she's awful, but yeah, she's been doing her thing. Give us a little bit of I guess it's a recap / preview, because it's a recap for you since you did the show yesterday, but it's a preview for those who are going to be watching it here in about an hour and 45 minutes. So tell us about Jazzy.
Well, I always talk about, and I myself and the team on the show, it's so fascinating to me how the Democrats create personas and characters. Individuals will do that sometimes, but the Democrats, and then when you get into the sphere of politics and you see this, and it's obvious, right? it's always fascinating, and they usually misfire in such a big way, and they have with Jasmine Crockett, because Jasmine Crockett was raised in a wealthy family. She went to great schools from high school all the way through college. You look at interviews with her before, and you see how articulate she is. I'm not saying that we agree on policies, but she doesn't sound like the hood rat that she sounds like now. So they go and pivot super hard, and hey, we're going to give you this new look, this new attitude, practice being this new person, and we're going to see if it resonates with this group. So we talk about that all the time. We talked about that yesterday, and you'll see that conversation on the show, because they're targeting a group that is such a small group. It's like when the left goes after the LGBTQ community, and particularly the BTQ part of it. And it's like, why are you pandering and placating to this group so much? There's such a small percentage. And then why are you making Jasmine Crockett speak to this small percentage of the minority population? The minority population is small. You're targeting with her a smaller one because she doesn't resonate with the others. So we talked about that, and we always do. And then she had mentioned how the Trump cabinet was the worst cabinet in the history of this country. And I just find that so remarkable when her character wouldn't know what a good cabinet looked like if it smacked her in the face. She's just so unqualified. You mentioned dumb earlier. It's like, you're so unqualified. You need to sit this one out, girl. Like, this is not a conversation that you should be having. Everyone's entitled to your opinion, but maybe don't weigh in on this one, because it's just such a bad take. Like, what is a good, like, so the last cabinet is a good cabinet, Jasmine? That's what we're talking about. We're talking about, Dick Levine. We're talking about KJP. We're talking about all these folks. I mean, it's just remarkable how the mind of the left works. Like, pick one. Is this one perfect? No one is. We're all broken humans. But I'll take this one over the other one every day of the week, because the country's prosperous. It's safe. It's all of those things.
Amen to that. We'll be right back with Drew Berquist. We have with us today, not in studio, at least not in my studio, he's in his studio. We have Drew Berquist joining us on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Drew, I got you for one more segment. We got about, I don't know, like 6 minutes. And I did spring that on you. You pick a topic, and you're like, what the hell? What sort of amateur interviewer are you, Rucker? No, it's just because we're friends. We talk all the time, and we're not going to be friends here on September 6th. Because that's when Oklahoma plays Michigan, and I am an Oklahoma fan. Drew is a Michigan fan, and we're gonna get bloody. So just want to alert everybody.
It's gonna be a day.
It will be a day. So this is a topic that you have never been asked about before. You probably never talked about it on air, but we're going to talk about it today. You have done water fasting before, have you not?
No, I haven't. I've talked to you about it, and my oldest brother does it. I have lots of friends who do it. But I haven't done it. I haven't had quite the momentum to do it, but I see a lot of value, and I totally understand why you do it.
Oh, never mind that. I thought for sure we were gonna like have a water fasting bonding moment live on air, and I was totally mistaken. I need to get your brother on the show, I guess. Well, if that's the case, then let's talk about Russia. Okay. Russia is always an easy topic. You got Rubio out there saying things, he's trying to get things fixed. You got Trump maybe going to see Putin, potential for after that meeting, depending upon how it goes for Putin and Trump and Zelensky to maybe have the first triple meeting that could lead to the end of the war. That's the buzz. That's the hype. What do you think? I mean, we've been going through this for so long, 3 years. What are the chances of that actually happening?
I don't know a number to put on it. I'll just say this. Like, obviously it'd be great. I want us out of it. I think it'd be great for the bloodshed over there to stop for both of those countries' sake, but particularly I care about us first and foremost, and I'd like us to have less involvement on a personal level. But I'm at the I'll believe it when I see it stage. I think that President Trump does a masterful job in terms of negotiating deals. I think that he gets not nearly enough credit for how he handles foreign policy. But I think it's complicated because Putin is a strong figure, 100%. Putin knows what he wants. He responds to strong leaders, which we have now. Obviously, we didn't before. And then you've got, on the flip side, you've got Zelensky, who is a little bit of a wild card and out of control. We built him up. We made him who he is, but now he's gotten a little too big for his britches. And this is a gravy train for him. And you've got the DC war machine that wants it to keep going. He's in bed with them, wants it to keep going for his own reasons. So I think it's possible. I think we're closer than we've been. I feel better about the prospect of all the buzz out there about the temporary ceasefire, about the potential meetings, all of that. I'll believe it when it ends and we can stop talking about it.
I cannot wait. It's funny that you said that, because you stole my line. That's what I was going to say. I can't wait till we can stop talking about it. Of course, Drew busts out with that. All right. So I know this is our last segment together, 2 or 3 minutes or less. Analyze, if you would, the current state of the United States. And I'm not saying just generally. I'm saying, what do you see as maybe a threat here? Something that makes you hopeful, something you're excited about, something that you're terrified of. It could be anything. When you're looking out at the current state of America itself, I'm not talking geopolitically necessarily. In America, what do you wake up to and think, I hope this happens, or I hope this doesn't happen?
I think my biggest concern, I was talking about this on a show last night. The biggest concern is we generally speaking get really wrapped around the axle on threats that are outside. We get, whether it's extremism, whether it's Russia. Hey, what if China invades Taiwan? All those things are really important, by the way. But I think that the biggest thing that bothers me, that concerns me, and I think should concern you, is the division that is being sown here. And obviously we've felt it and we've all experienced it for a while. But I think that the biggest threat still remains here with just this cultural and this political and this ideological divide that exists, because we're at the point now where we're at each other's throats, and there's not even really a desire. There might be in some of the people listening or watching, but for a lot of people, there's not even really a desire to make amends and patch things up. And I don't know how possible that even is, as we've gotten so far, to one side or the other. So I think that's one of the biggest things, because if you're one of our foes, a big state actor, what's the easiest way to beat us is have us just beat ourselves. So I'm very, very concerned about where we're going in terms of that.
Gotcha. God bless you, Drew. We will talk later.
Thanks so much for having me.
See you, brother.
I'm super excited about it, and I think you will be too. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and show you real quick how to cook this. All you need is a bottle of water. I think it's a 16-ounce bottle of water in the meal. The first thing you want to do is open it up, pull everything out. This big clear bag is the heater bag. This is a bag of freeze-dried apple chips. They're actually really good. This is the heater itself. That just gets opened up and the heater comes out of it. Silverware. Man, the spoon is like really a tough spoon. This isn't a cheap spoon, which I really like about it. It's got a water measuring bag. And then this is the meal itself. And what you want to do is open that up. They have an oxygen absorber inside of them, so make sure you throw that away. Take the heater bag, open the bottom of it, put the heater element inside of it, and make sure it lays flat there on the bottom, and just set that off to the side. Take your water measuring bag, and it's got on there what you need. I know for this meal you need 1.5 cups of water. So just fill this up to 1.5 cups. Dump that inside the meal kit. Close that up real good. Make sure it's closed good, because you got to shake it. So close that up and shake it up real good. Stick that down inside your heater bag. You want to get it flat in there. So it'll set in there just like that. Heater on the bottom, the food on top. And I've done enough of these, I know that it takes another half a cup of water to activate that heater, and I know that's what's left in here. Just go ahead and dump that in the top. Seal the top of it. This gets hot, but we're going to show you real quick how it boils, and I'm going to take it over here and put it in the sink. Let it set for a half hour. And again, be careful because the meal will be hot, but man, you're ready to eat after 30 minutes. It's perfect for in the woods. It's perfect for hunting or camping or fishing. We just had them in Wyoming while we were fly fishing. I put one together, threw it in the back of the boat, and a half hour later I got a hot meal. But we'll give it a quick second here and you'll see this thing start to boil. That will slow down, but it'll continue to put heat out. So, like I said, it's got vent holes up top here so it doesn't pop. But I don't want to keep it on top of my counter. I'm going to throw it in the sink. Or what it looks like when it's finished. Open the bag. Pull the meal out. Open up your silverware. Like I said, dude, it's a sturdy spoon. I like that. Open the meal up. Give it a stir. And again, it's hot, so be careful. But there's what it looks like when it's finished.
Visit patriot.tv/food. That's patriot.tv/food and use promo code PATRIOT at checkout.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wendy Bell, America's anchor mom, fighting for America 1 hour at a time. Welcome to the family.
You know, you can be in the middle of a hurricane.
I'll speak on behalf of my colleagues. I think I can say we are all willing to work with anyone who's serious about doing the work of censoring the American people and advancing progress.
People can yell at you.
So I am going to tell you that we have to Trump.
North is still north. You could be in a thunderstorm.
I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed.
North is still north. It doesn't change fundamental things.
We're living in a different world. 70% of Americans say Trump is doing what he promised to do.
And in this business, right is still right. Even if you stand by yourself.
We don't get fooled again.
3 hours of bold truth and excellence. You've just signed up for the WBR Army. Strap in. This is the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Filling in for Wendy Bell from Patriot TV, J.D. Rucker.
Good morning, citizens of the United States of America. You're listening to the Wendy Bell Radio Program, and I am your Lieutenant General fill-in, the guy that's leading the charge of the WBR Army for the day, J.D. Rucker. You can always find me over at patriot.tv, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about America. Today's episode is called Changing the Game, and we are in the middle of it. And as I noted yesterday, it's extremely important that we, as American citizens, we don't get complacent. If you're a patriot, if you're a conservative, if you're a libertarian, if you're just somebody who doesn't hate America, well, guess what? We have work to do. We didn't finish our job last November. Okay, our job continues. And you might have different degrees of ways to contribute, but I do believe that everybody needs to contribute. That was the way that it was. If you go back to challenges in the turn of last century, right? 1900s, early 1900s, people were trying to sort through that as best they could. But right around the time when World War II was starting, there was a whole lot of unity that was forming here in the United States of America. And that persisted for a long time up until, even get me started with everything that happened in the 60s and 70s that sort of started the dividing of America, the planned cultural Marxist, neo-Marxist divide of the United States of America. That was horrific. But there was a time where we had, I would say, growing unity, and that time sort of returned in a lot of ways during the 80s and even during the 90s. Yes, even during Clinton years, there was enough prosperity, enough lack of hatred between Americans that things, we were doing okay. I mean, the racism was really dropping. All of the hard feelings from years past were starting to melt away, and we started becoming more of a unified nation. Then, of course, 9/11 happened, and 9/11 was a very unifying time for I guess a while. But then it turned into a dividing time, and I would argue that elements within our government, elements within the deep state, utilize this to divide us because they need us divided. They need us to not be working together as a team, but also to not be working as individuals. Now here we are, and we have very polarized. We have essentially two sides with a handful of people that are not on this side and a handful of people that are not on that side, but that are aligned. But right now, it really is. And it's not just about Democrat versus Republican. It's about, loving America versus hating America. I would say that the majority of Democrats, whether they do so willingly or not, support things that are American hating, if that makes any sense. In other words, they don't necessarily wake up in the morning and say, how do I destroy America? But they willingly contribute to, participate in, and fully support ideas, policies, organizations. Basically, they do things that are against the United States of America. So when I say that we need to change the game, that's the game that I'm talking about. We have to match and hopefully overcome what they are dishing out. It's not just about Democrat politicians or Chinese Communist Party influencers or whatever. We are in a battle. I don't want to call it a war yet because we're not there. We are in various battles with our counterparts on the left. And in some ways that does require some unity. In other ways, we can do this as individuals, as American patriots. And again, I look back to the 40s when people pitched in, they did their part. They did their part as individuals to help the greater cause. Now, here's the thing. Here's the slippery slope. When people start talking like I'm talking right now, it could go in either direction. They could be trying to lead you down a path of, we need to come together to end capitalism, or we need to come together to end whatever they hate today. I'm asking you not necessarily to come together. I'm asking you to figure out what you can do as an individual, as an American citizen, to make things better. And here's the thing, and here's the beauty of it, before people are like, I don't have time for that, I don't want to do it. The easiest way, by far the easiest way that you can help this nation is to be successful yourself. It's to be successful at raising your family, at improving your financial situation, your home situation, whatever situations you're in. By improving yourself, that puts you into a position that if and when the time comes where there is catastrophe or wars or Democrats winning elections or anything horrible that could happen in the future, if you're in a better shape personally and within your family's position, you're going to be great. You're going to be able to help out. And so when I say we all have to contribute, even just contributing to yourself and your own family, making sure that you're doing better, that helps America. That helps to secure our future. If you go out, and I'm going to use this as a horrible example, but it's the first thing that popped into mind for some strange reason. But if you go out tomorrow and because you're in a financial position to where, hey, we got to go do back to school shopping, and I could go get the cheap Chinese jeans, or I could go buy American Eagle jeans. And to be fair, I don't know if they're made in China or not. So don't hold that against me if they are also a Chinese company. But with that said, they are currently, right? American Eagle is currently positioned as that's their position is freedom because they are out there, bucking the system and ending woke culture and blah, blah, blah. Well, that contribution that you made by going out and buying whatever, we'll say going out and buying MyPillow or going out and buying whatever, that because you're in that position, because you improved your own situation to the point that you could make purchases from American companies, that helps. But you know what's even better than that? Better than buying from American Eagle or anybody else? Going out and buying from your local farmer. Stop going to these various, supermarket chains, Walmart especially, and going to these farmers they have farmers markets in, I would say, most areas or wherever you live. There's a good chance that there's going to be a farmer's market sometime during the week, someplace close to you. Shop there. That's where you should get as much as you can, your vegetables. Sometimes they have even meats there, other products. That helps America. Our farmers are under attack, not just by Bill Gates, not just by China, but in some ways by our own government. Now, praise God, we've got an administration that's trying to reverse that, but there's a lot to reverse. Okay. There's been years, decades of attacks against farmers and ranchers for a very long time. And now I think we're starting to really understand why that's the case. So, but even that, you're killing two birds with one stone, right? Yes, you're supporting the local community and America. Okay, you're a tax-paying American. You're paying a tax-paying American company that's serving all American food. And then you get to the second bird that you're killing, and you're taking good, wholesome, real food and feeding it to your family, eating it yourself. Think along those lines. Because again, we're going to be talking about more aggressive ways, more direct ways that we can change the game, that we as individual American citizens, individual families, individual communities, how we can actually start making a difference while we have the chance. Because I would argue that one of the biggest mistakes that we made from 2017 to 2020 is that we, as a movement, the MAGA movement did great to get President Trump elected, to get the Republicans control of the House and the Senate. And then I would say 50, 60, maybe 80%, maybe more of the MAGA coalition, the MAGA voters, many of them new voters. It's like, okay, mission accomplished. Let's move on. And then we went about our own thing. And then we started focusing on, well, I'm going here. Am I going to get beat up if I wear the hat? I shouldn't wear the hat. Or you know what? It's okay. I can wear the hat and I'm a big tough guy. We started focusing on dumb stuff instead of taking advantage of the opportunity that we had during the first 2 years. Now, it's not our fault. I don't think we knew. And to not, so that everybody's clear, I'm not just pointing my finger. I was one of those people. I'm like, all right, it's party time, right? Let's let the good times roll. This is going to be awesome. It'll be the first time in decades that we're actually going to keep the House and the Senate. Okay. That never happens. Presidents usually get, they come into office the first time, they get control of the House and the Senate for the first 2 years. And then the last 2 or 6 years in office, they don't have control of both. That's rinse and repeat. You can take it all the way back to like Nixon. So I thought, wow, this is going to be so awesome that we're not going to have to worry. We're in good shape. We're not going to have to do anything. We're not, we just need to reap the benefits. You watch, we're just going to reap the benefits. The wall's going to get built. Great. Tax cuts should come any second now. Great. And now those eventually did come. Obamacare gone. It's out of here. I was so naive. But if anything, I would say that helped me to understand the enemy. And we're going to talk about the enemy today on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Be right back. Oh, yes. Good back. Radio newbie waiting for the music to play. And then it's like, no, you don't have music. Just talk, Rucker. Good. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I am JD Rucker, and I'm just sitting here like a dunce in empty air. In radio, you never have empty air. I used to have a very popular shortwave radio program. We would get calls in. I'm not kidding, from like India. We get calls from Singapore. We get all these calls in. And I think that was probably the most fun I've ever had on radio until today. Today is the most fun I've ever had on radio. And I almost ruined it by sitting there like a dunce waiting for the music. So we're going to start today's show with, we're going to ease our way in and talk about I have a topic that's not controversial at all. We're just going to keep it easy, keep it simple. Let's talk about Israel and Gaza. Yes, let's talk about that. According to Breitbart, Netanyahu says that Israel will seize full control of Gaza, defeat Hamas, transfer territory to Arab governance. According to the article, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared Thursday that Israel intends to take full control of the entire Gaza Strip to eliminate Hamas and transfer authority to non-hostile Arab forces, outlining his most comprehensive vision yet for ending the war as his security cabinet met to approve the operations. Speaking to Fox News host Bill Hemmer, ahead of the critical security cabinet meeting, Netanyahu laid out his vision for completely dismantling Hamas rule and transferring Gaza to new leadership. And this is a quote from Netanyahu. We have three missions. One, to eliminate Hamas as a governing and military power in Gaza. Otherwise, there's no future for anyone, and we will have many more kidnappings and hostages. Second, achieve the liberation of all of our hostages. And third, make sure that Gaza doesn't pose a threat to Israel again. And I can already tell, because most of you have never heard me before today or yesterday, I guess. Most of you have no idea my stance on Gaza, on Israel, on the Middle East, on all of this stuff. And I'll keep it really simple. I don't really care. And I know that's going to make everybody mad. That's going to make the anti-Israel people, the people that say that Israel is the cause of all of our problems, it's going to make them mad. And it's going to make the people that are, vehemently opposed, supportive of Israel, they're our best ally in the Middle East. We got to do everything we can for them. It's going to make them mad. I'm an America first guy. Okay. So the events that pertain to Israel, the Middle East, Gaza, if they happen here, then, hey, I want something done about it. Like, for example, AIPAC. Okay. AIPAC has been influencing our government for so long. Yeah. That needs to stop. I mean, the level of influence that AIPAC has over our government is just tremendous. And then there's the rioters, the quote unquote protesters, the people who are, from the river to the sea, those people. That needs to stop. Now, I'm not trying to be clear. I'm not trying to subvert their First Amendment rights. I'm not saying they can't do that. What I'm saying is that we need to counter that. Okay. Because it's okay to not really worry so much. And let me backtrack on that one real quick. I shouldn't say we need to counter that, because it's not the protests themselves. Okay. If people want to protest, they can protest all day. That's great. Awesome. It's when they start getting, destroying things, taking over buildings, right? When they stop, when they're harassing and tormenting and terrifying. And keep in mind, when I say terrifying, it is a form of terrorism. It really, truly is. That's the idea of terrorism, is if you are going after, you've got some Jew student walking along and you're like, oh, you're a Jew, blah, 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 blah. That is a form of terrorism. Just as if a, walking down New York City back in, shortly after 9/11, it's like, you're a Muslim and they're like, oh, there's get that Muslim, that's terrorism. Okay, because it should be expected to cause fear. That's why they're doing it. So again, I'm not against the protests. We have rights. You can protest anything you want. You can protest me. Okay, you could protest President Trump. You could protest whatever. So I'm not against the protests. When I'm saying countering when the protests escalate to something that is damaging a property, whether it's public or private, there was this one, I forgot who it was. It was during it wasn't even during the pro Palestine rally or riots or protests or whatever. It was during the anti-ICE riots, right? And they had lit a police car on fire. And they're interviewing this guy, and he's like, I didn't do it, but I will tell you this, that should not be illegal. because, you know, we have a righteous message and blah, blah, blah. And they're part of the, it's like, no, that's definitely illegal. Okay. That's definitely absolutely illegal. And you cannot be allowed to do that. If you want to hold your signs, if you want to scream and holler, great. Just don't do it in a way that obstructs. Don't go on highways. All those climate loonies going on highways, you know, it's like, yeah, like if one of their loved ones was in a hospital bleeding out, or in the ambulance bleeding out on the way to the hospital, I guarantee they wouldn't want that highway blocked. But they don't care because they got a message. They want, oh my gosh, we got to prevent the climate change from man-made polar bears, and oh my gosh, we got to block highways and ruin everybody's day, because if we do that, if we get everybody to hate what we're doing, then that's going to save the whales. I would argue that the climate change cult may be amongst the most idiotic. So that's my take on Israel. After the break, we'll be talking about Democrats and their economy. Plus, we'll be getting into some conspiracy theories about it. Be right back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. And welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I am your guest host, Lieutenant General. I'm not, now to be clear, I'm not in the military. So I'm going to stop using that phrase because oh my gosh, stolen valor. No, I was referring to, because they're talking about the WB Army, and it's like, well, you know, but that's not, I'm just going to stop that because I hate it when people are involved with stolen valor. But I am JD Rucker. So here we go. Brandon Johnson, this guy. Yeah, I really thought, and there were times when I thought when a lot of people were saying that the previous two mayors, the previous probably 15 mayors of Chicago may be the worst mayor in the United States of America. But I think for the first time, I can actually argue that Brandon Johnson truly legitimately is the worst major city mayor in America. And keep in mind, I live within a stone's throw of Karen Bass in Los Angeles. Okay, so there's a lot of bad mayors out there. I think it's possible that Brandon Johnson may be the guy. And he's demonstrated for years now how he and his policies and the Democrats' policies in general are just absolutely horrific, especially when it comes to the economy. We can talk about, how they're handling LGBTQIA plus supremacy, that's bad, or how they're handling race relations, or sanctuary city, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, your average Chicagoan is going to be most concerned about how it's affecting their pay, how it's affecting their job availability, how it's affecting their taxes, how it's affecting government spending, how it's affecting all these things. And of course, all of those point back to financial policies. Well, apparently it's starting to crush them. We've got cut one here in a second where you'll see Brandon Johnson. He's basically saying, look, things are really bad since Democrats have been in charge of the city for so long. It's getting to the point where we're getting desperate. Watch.
We have reached a point of no return. The systems that people rely upon, education, healthcare, housing, our transportation, they are woefully underfunded. And everyone knows that. Everyone knows what, my commitment is to progressive revenue. I can't do this by myself.
The mayor's statement coming in response to a question about a pension.
He can't do it by himself, but he can break it by himself, which is what he did. Okay, he's just the worst. But here's the thing. It's not really him. I mean, he's only doing what he's supposed to do, and he's actually doing what he's supposed to do exceptionally well. Unfortunately, what he thinks that he's supposed to do is being a very good Democrat, not being very good to Chicago. And those two things are diametrically opposed. You can't be a Democrat, a good Democrat, and be an elected official who's putting forth Democrat policies and initiating Democrat legislation and signing Democrat bills and doing Democrat things, not in 2025 or 2024, really, or 2020 for that matter. You can't do those things and still think that you're going to be able to do well for your constituents, do well for the people that are trusting you. Why? Because Democrat policies are unambiguously awful. That has not always been the case. For anyone old enough to remember, there were times when Democrat policies were, I guess you could say, arguably worse than Republicans, but they weren't like destructive. They weren't like, oh my gosh, if we do that, that's going to eliminate the city's law enforcement capabilities altogether. Or if we do that, that's going to tank the economy in this city or county or state or country. Or if we do that, then there's going to be an onslaught of illegal aliens coming in that we've never seen before. No, there was a time. We're talking within the pre-Obama Democrats will say. The pre-Obama Democrats actually had some ordinary ideas. Okay, they weren't good ideas generally, but they were ordinary ideas. But keep in mind, don't forget, I mean, even Joe Biden was saying, we got to secure the border. We got to deport people. Barack Obama deported people. You know, I think there was a reason for that. And that's a conspiracy theory that if I ever come back to the Wendy Bell radio show, if I ever get invited back to guest host for it today, I will talk about that conspiracy theory because that's a doozy. That's a fun one. But yeah, you know, they were actually kind of normal. It's just Republican policies generally were better, and not all of them were. Okay, there were some bad Republican policies as well, even during Newt Gingrich's time. So here today, though, for Brandon Johnson to be a good Democrat, a great Democrat, he's doing his job, and that job is destroying Chicago. And this is a city that, after decades of Democrat rule, they didn't have a whole lot of leeway there. They didn't have a whole lot of rope. Okay, they still need somebody to come in and save them. But as Johnson said, the help might not be coming. They may be beyond the point of no return. And Chicago's not the first. There's a lot of cities that are like that. Detroit, you know, the rebuilding and rejuvenating Detroit is a monstrous undertaking. I don't think it's going to succeed. Okay, if you live in Detroit, I hate to tell you that. Okay, I've been there a couple times in recent years. It has deteriorated. The policies are still awful. Crime is still rampant. They say, oh, but crime is so much better than it was. Yeah, but no, it's not that. It's the way they count crime. Okay, the crime numbers have been manipulated to make it look like, oh, there's progress. There's no progress. It's still dangerous. Okay, it's not a place that you want to walk around in at night. Neither is Washington, D.C. for now, but we'll be getting to that story a little bit later. I was going to actually lead with that story, but I thought, you know what? Let's just get Gaza, Israel out of the way. Yeah, so we did. But people might ask why. Maybe you ask why. I mean, Democrats, they're not, okay, so maybe they are stupid, but they're not self-harming from a politician perspective. In other words, if they see that this doesn't work, their economic policies suck, why do they keep doing the same thing? Because they have been. As a matter of fact, they've been going lefter and lefter and lefter for years, even realizing, of course, that their policies are awful. You might think, are they dense? It's like, no, that's part of the plan. As a matter of fact, that's an integral part of the plan. They want control, and you can't control. It's much harder to control a prosperous people who are armed, a prosperous people who are free, a prosperous people who can communicate. If you look at all the most draconian dictatorships out there, all of them, the people are suffering. Okay, the people are not prosperous. You'd think that a lot of these nations, they have the money, they have the resources, they can make things better for their people, but they don't need to. They don't want to because they have total control. President Trump put out doubled up the reward to try to bring Nicolas Maduro, Venezuelan whatever despot, into custody. $50 million if you can help that. I mean, hey, that's enough. That might be enough for me to pull some like Batman action. Fly down to Venezuela, you know, my dark suit, and get a plane to fly over, and I'll grab Maduro and then jet off, you know. $50 million. It's worth it. But yeah, I mean, those people in those countries are failing. And guess what? whether they know it or not, because I think the vast majority, to be clear, the vast majority of Democrat politicians, they are pawns. They really are. Like, they think, oh, we got to do this. Brandon Johnson, total pawn. Well, we gotta do this because this is the way to get to where we need to be. They're not thinking big picture. They're not thinking the long term. They don't know what the grand master plan is. They're just the tools. It's like, hey, push this policy, push this policy. Okay, we'll do that. And they do it. And it's like, well, we might be beyond the point of no return now. So we got to come together. And they're on the phone in the back room. Hey, you guys said this stuff would work. It didn't work. It's like, no, don't worry. It's working. Just hang in there. Keep going. Keep going. Keep killing Chicago. I mean, keep trying to fix Chicago. You're doing great, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon. So yeah, that's part of the plan. Part of the goal is to destroy our economy. And it's not because the Democrats themselves want that. It's because they're being told this. They're not being told it's going to destroy. They're being told this is our policy and this is what you're pushing. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll do that. Who's telling them? Yes. Now we're getting into the conspiracy theory side of everything. Who's telling them? The globalist elite cabal. Because for them to be able to take America down, to be able to have a multipolar world, for them to be able to have control over the freest people that this world has ever known, they have to destroy economies. One community, one state, one city, one county, one country at a time, one individual and family at a time. They want us to be under their control. And that's why this next story is a doozy. According to Reclaim the Net, MasterCard wants to be your digital ID. As European authorities accelerate efforts to introduce centralized digital identity frameworks, MasterCard is working aggressively to insert itself into the core of this transformation. And before you say, well, that's Europe. Look, Europe is the testing ground. Australia is a testing ground. These are places where they see what's happening. And in many ways, Africa, depending on what it is, Africa is also being used as a testing ground for a lot of the globalists' policies. But before they introduce it firmly in America, they always test. They're basically stress testing the message. They're testing our willingness to comply. And once they get it, the messaging proper, and once they get the tweaked and this, that, or the other, then they bring it to America. We've seen it time and time again over the decades. This is a playbook that's been working since, at the very least, the 50s and 60s, since really the latest rise of the deep state. But anyway, payments giant presents its involvements in the EU's digital agenda as a natural extension of its expertise in security transactions. Under the branding of convenience and trust is a much deeper issue. A private corporation with a history of controlling access to commerce is helping to shape how individuals will prove their identity across both public and private life. Spokesman, the executive vice president for MasterCard in their services department has publicly endorsed the European Commission's ambition to roll out the European digital identity. Ooh, crazy. Wallet as many as 80% of EU citizens by 2030. There's that number. Have you ever heard of the year 2030? Have you ever noticed it keeps popping up? Sure does. Sure does. I'll give you, after the break, I'll give you an interesting fact about the year 2030, but let's finish this. By 2030, European Commission expects up to 80% of the citizens could be using this every day. That's what they want. And that's what they want here in the United States of America. You don't need ID. You don't need anything else. You just need your MasterCard, and it'll get you access to everything. You just have to give them access to everything about you. After the break, talk about, redistricting and gerrymandering here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. If you're like me, you don't necessarily like to go to the doctor unless you absolutely have to. I know a lot of you out there don't go to the doctor at all. That's great. Some of you love to go to the doctor. That's great. We all have our preferences. Our medical needs are fulfilled. We live in a nation where, despite all of the challenges we have, we still have the best bad option when it comes to healthcare. But sometimes you know exactly what you need. You know, for example, if you need ivermectin, you know if you need antibiotics or UTI treatments or chronic meds or or symptom relief medications. This is why we work with our fantastic partners over at Jace Medical. You can learn more about them and work with them by going to patriot.tv/meds. That's patriot.tv/meds. And you can pick up a whole bunch of things. They got tons of products now. And they are, I know there's a lot of companies out there that offer similar products, but these guys have been doing it for a very long time. They are the OGs, so to speak, and they have been able to innovate and advance in ways that other companies simply can't. They get mimicked a lot, they get copied a lot, but you can't do better than what they have over at Jace Medical. Their Jace case, for example, has improved. It used to just be 5 antibiotics, and that's great. That was important. I've had 2 of them. But now they've added another 5 for symptom relief meds, vital symptom relief medications. Of course, the aforementioned ivermectin. They have kits for cruises. If you're going on a cruise this summer, man, so many different options they have. Go to patriot.tv/meds, patriot.tv/meds, and see how their telehealth system is able to work for you. They just send the meds to you via mail. It's awesome. And best of all, you don't have to go to the doctor. And we're back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I'm your host for the day, JD Rucker. And I promised before the break that I would share an interesting note about the year 2030, which I shouldn't have let in by telling, because 2030 is actually the punchline. But so you got King David, right? King David died in 970 BC, right? Based upon biblical historians, they say that the most likely date of Jesus's death and, of course, resurrection was 30 AD, which is exactly 1,000 years after King David died. Now, you fast forward, I don't know what happened, if anything happened in 1030 AD, but what is possibly exactly 2,000 years since the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ? Yes, that would be 2030. Okay, cool. Just wanted y'all to know that. That's just a little tidbit. I did a video about that, I don't know, a decade ago, and it ended up getting like 50 million views. It was pretty sick. So that's been my, I've got a couple of other trivia pieces, by the way, that have done similarly well, just not nearly as interesting or pertinent today. All right, so what are we talking about next? Legacy news. Legacy news skips the proposed 2030 census for not counting illegals. Of course, yesterday, President Trump said, hey, we got to stop counting illegal aliens. We got a task force put together. We're going to try to prevent that. And so that way you don't have illegal aliens helping to determine congressional districts or electoral votes or funding or this, that, or the other. So he wants a truly accurate census, which, let's face it, it makes sense, right? Kind of like, duh. Of course, the census should be that it just as voting is only geared, supposedly, allegedly, theoretically, is only for American citizens, so too should the census only be counting American citizens. With me? Well, you'd think, oh my gosh, Trump's trying to do this bad thing to illegal, to what do they call them? To undocumented, soon-to-be Democrat voters. I think that's the official name, I think. But they didn't. Nothing. They didn't say anything about it. It makes you wonder why. According to, I think this is from Newsbusters, major news was made as President Trump called for a new census that excluded illegal aliens. This would also exclude them from being accounted for purposes of congressional reappointment, which would alter the makeup of Congress. Per Fox News, President Trump declared in a Thursday morning Truth Social post that he has directed the Commerce Department to start working on a new census, noting that illegal aliens in the U.S. will not be included in the population count. He said, I have instructed our Department of Commerce to immediately begin work on a new and highly accurate census based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly, use the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024. None of this, again, you think, wow, big news. Big news for legacy media. But no, none of this drew coverage on ABC, CBS, or NBC newscasts. The proposed new census would draw meaningful coverage on Spanish language media. Here's how so it got a little bit of play, but nothing from the majors. And you might think, I wonder what that is. I wonder why that is. And I'll tell you exactly why it is. And I'll bet you, I would say 95% of show hosts didn't catch on to this. And I was one of them until I was talking to a contact who clued me in. It's like, and this is a contact who's close to the Democrats, by the way. Clued me because I asked him, why wouldn't they be covering this? The word didn't go out. Legacy media didn't get the memo. And he said, because that's a donor issue. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Now, what he means is then this is in preparation for 2028 election. What he was telling me was this: there are certain issues that are public issues, right? It's like, oh, let's get the everybody rowdy, and that's at this point that's all Democrats have. They have public issues that they can go out there and rant about, and they can't push their own policies, they can't promote their own ideology because so it's always negative about Trump. They don't say anything positive about themselves because they have nothing positive to say. So it's always negative against Trump. Well, this one's negative against Trump, but they didn't push it out to the public. They didn't contact their legacy media people and send out the memo that says, hey, we're going to attack this. But then there's donor policies, which means that they're going to use this as something to highlight getting their president, more funding for the 2028 election. That's how this stuff works, folks. After the break, Democrats, if they do ever get into power, it should terrify us. And James Carville tells us why. Right after the break for the Wendy Bell Radio Program.
Filling in for Wendy Bell from Patriot TV, J.D. Rucker.
We are going to win more. We're going to keep winning. President Trump's going to do what he's going to do. Hopefully we can get Congress to do what they're supposed to do. And we, the American people, are going to do what we need to do to support those efforts, to build ourselves up, to become very strong as individuals and as families, as communities. We're going to do our part because we don't want a repeat of basically everything that happened from 2019 on. Okay, there was, you could say, oh, but 2019, President Trump was still in office. Well, yeah, a lot of bad things still happened. Okay, a lot of bad things still happened. Democrats were able to stop the agenda from moving forward, of course, because they had control of the House. It wasn't good. And then, of course, 2020 into 2021, that went south for us too. Very much so. They stole the election, and then next thing you know, you got Chuck Schumer, you got Hakeem Jeffries. It was all sorts of bad. Nancy Pelosi. Bad stuff. Bad stuff. But hey, we're recovering, and we have an opportunity now to do even better. I teased the story that we're going to get to here in a second about what could happen, according to James Carville, or what he says should happen once they get control back, which means that we can't let them get control back. But first, I want to cut to what we're actually really talking about lately, especially, which is the weaponization of government. You had Jake Tapper in Cut 2. He was talking about, isn't this bad? What are we? Shouldn't Trump be saying no to weaponization of government, even though government was weaponized against him? And you'll note that he even basically acknowledges that, government was kind of weaponized against him. But of course, he doesn't think it should be turned against the Democrats. Watch.
Talk about how radicalized they were by, let's say, the investigations. Mm-hmm. And again, let's just for the benefit of the doubt say, okay, I get it. But now instead of saying that was so horrible, no one should ever go through it. They're saying that was so horrible. Now we're going to do it to them.
After he insisted, I will end the weaponization. It's really hard to see what is the difference here.
He's turbocharged it.
Right, and he is systematically going after people who either criticize him or oppose him, or have disagreed with him or investigated him. And we will see how many more follow.
Yeah. So there's a big difference, a huge difference between weaponizing a department such as the Department of Justice and utilizing it to do its job. Okay. On one hand, it was weaponized to say, oh my gosh, look, Trump had used numbers that we disagree with for his loan application, in New York, so put him in jail, right? On the other hand, and they're like, yes, all the Democrats, Jake Tapper, everybody's like, oh yes, he's got to go to jail. He's got to go to jail. But then fast forward to now, it's like, well, we've discovered that the Obama administration and many members of the Obama administration, senior members, including FBI, DNI, CIA was involved, members of the cabinet, they were all involved in this coup to subvert the will of the people. It started off as a coup, right? To prevent, I guess you'd call it a pre-coup, to try to get Hillary Clinton elected. And when that didn't work, they weaponized it to try to destroy the Trump administration, or at the very least distract it, keep it from being able to do any good, utilizing illegal measures, far more illegal than a disagreement about the valuation of Mar-a-Lago or whatever. And they're like, then we should go after him, but now, that's weaponization. No, that's the Department of Justice trying to do its job. It's not weaponization. There were crimes committed, and those crimes need to be punished. And we're now finally doing everything we can. Hopefully. I say we because there's nothing you and I can do. They, Lord willing, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the whole team, hopefully they're doing everything they can, following Tulsi Gabbard's lead. It's not even her responsibility, but she's like, well, somebody's got to do it. Let's get this out there. Following her lead, it appears that they are at least trying to get something. Now, again, I don't want to be that guy that rah rah, it's happening. Just trust the plan. No, I'm not that guy. I am that guy that sits back and says, yeah, this is good. This is great. Yeah. Now show me charges. Show me arrests. Show me prosecutions. And then show me jail time. All right, then I'll be like, all right, good. You guys are doing your job. At this point, it seems as if they're trying to sort of start doing their job. And I'm okay with that. And that's not weaponization, contrary to what Jake Tapper and whoever his guest was. They gaslighting. Brainwashing is what it's become. And unfortunately, still far too many people are paying attention to CNN and MSNBC. And when I say far too many people, it will always be far too many people until it's down to 0 people. So, because if they're reaching one human being, which they're getting close to dwindling down to those numbers, if they can reach one American and brainwash them, that's too many. So far too many. It should be 0. So the story that I was talking about before, teasing ahead of this segment, what Democrats will do if they ever get back in power, should terrify you. Democrats have, and this comes from PJ Media, Democrats have completely dropped the pretense of fair play and now openly admit that they intend to rig the system to secure permanent control. James Carville, a longtime Democrat strategist, declared that if Democrats win big in 2028, they should use that victory as a launchpad to cement their power in ways never seen before. Carville explicitly called for adding Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia, both reliably Democrat strongholds, as new states to skew electoral influence. On top of that, he advocated expanding the Supreme Court to 13 seats, packing it with leftist judges to tilt future judicial decisions in their favor. In other words, Democrats are no longer content with trying to win elections or steal elections. They want to change the rules so that they can no longer lose them. And here's his quote. He said, if the Democrats win the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2028, which is not impossible. I don't know if you'd say likely or possible. I don't know that word, but it's certainly not impossible. Whatever. They are just going to have to unilaterally add Puerto Rico and District of Columbia as states. So when they say, achieving permanent Democrat rule, that's exactly what they mean, and that's exactly what it would be. Of course, chances are, unless they were able to get a super majority, they'd have to first dissolve the filibuster, right? And then they would have to push forward the most destructive agenda we've ever seen in America. And you might say to yourself, oh, it's just James Carville. What does he know? He's a has-been. He's a Clinton guy. He doesn't have any power or influence. No, James Carville is a tool. Okay. I would say 90% of the time, he's just going out there and delivering whatever unhinged message he has for the day. That's it. That's what he does. That's how he gets on shows. He says crazy things, but we think, oh, he's just trying to stay relevant. No, that's not his role. James Carville is actively part of the Democrat system, and I would say argue technically the global elite cabal system. He is supposed to go out there, do that, and sound a little bit crazy every day, so that when they have a message, when they, being the powers that be, have a message for him to test, they send it out through him. They plant the seed through people like him. He's not the only one, but people like him, that's their role in the Democrat Party. Otherwise, they really have nothing. They have no reason to be talking. And to be clear, on the right, there are people like that as well. Okay. They're trial balloons. It's like, say something, and I know the first question is going to be, well, who on the right is like that? Who is the right's version of that? And one person would be Newt Gingrich. Just throwing that out there. I know a few more, but Newt Gingrich is definitely one of them. These are usually former politicians, bureaucrats, whatever, who have moved on in the years. Okay, they're older, but now they have an opportunity to be a mouthpiece for the agenda, not for the party, for the agenda, whether that's the agenda beyond or behind the party, but usually pertaining to the uniparty swamp. And don't get me wrong, I like Newt Gingrich. I think he's a pretty cool dude. Okay. I like a lot of his policies. I like his passion. I like a lot of the things that he did. And then I dislike a lot of things that he did when he was Speaker of the House. But whatever. Point is that Carville, when he's saying these things, he's not saying these things just to get attention. He's saying these things to test. What is the appetite for this? He's planting the seed. Could we pull it off? Could we do this? If we do take control, we being the Democrats, if we take control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, it's going to be disastrous what we're experiencing now. So the only way we can prevent the next Donald Trump from popping up would be to, I don't know, maybe add a couple of leftist non-states and make them states. Maybe, I don't know, pack the Supreme Court, take what's currently I would argue it's a 2 to, we'll call it, you got two originalists in Alito and Thomas. You've got 3 semi-lukewarm milquetoast, bounce back and forth between whether they're right or left. You got John Roberts, who's basically he fills gaps, usually on the left lately, well, for a long time. We have Obamacare still because of John Roberts. Don't get me started on that. And then you've got the 3. Well, they want to take that, which on most votes gives us at least 5, maybe even 6 votes. They want to take that and they want to reverse it by adding 4 more. Now, all of a sudden, John Roberts basically becomes a tiebreaker. Okay. In a lot of votes. Yeah. No. That would put it, that would give it to where the left would control every vote. That's right. All they need is 4. Wow. And that's what they want to happen. And if Democrats do win in 2028, I would argue that's exactly what will happen. These are the stakes, folks. These are the stakes. After the break, Stephen Miller's got some cool words about gerrymandering, and we're going to talk a lot about that right here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. We are back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I'm your guest host, J.D. Rucker. And yesterday, it's funny because I noted that I really, really love Tom Homan. I love Tom Homan. He's one of my favorite guys, period. Okay. But he's one of my favorite guys in the administration as far as I got nothing bad to say. And I started getting a lot of people throwing names at me, people that I should like. And yeah, they were right. And one of those names that kept getting thrown at me was Stephen Miller. What is there to dislike about Stephen Miller? And I'm thinking to myself, well, nothing. Maybe his hair. That's about it. That's the only thing to dislike about Stephen Miller. Otherwise, he's a great guy, and there's nothing wrong with being bold. So in cut 3, he's talking about redistricting is a corrective step. It's not like, oh, we're coming out of the blue and just deciding, hey, we want to gain seats. No, he, as I had said yesterday, he is now, obviously he watched this show because he's now repeating what I said. He's saying now this is a corrective step. Watch.
Illinois, Chicago, New York, Massachusetts. Democrats have gerrymandered the vote beyond recognition to try to maintain their advantage in the House elections. On top of that, let's not forget, Democrats rigged the 2020 census by including illegal aliens. Remember, they sued Donald Trump. They sued the administration. They fought tooth and nail to include illegal aliens in the census. 20 to 30 of House Democrat seats wouldn't exist but for illegal aliens. Texas is taking just a small corrective step against this ocean of fraud, this ocean of abuse by the corrupt Democrat Party, Sean.
Ocean of abuse. That's what he said. And it is so true. It's been happening for years, for decades, and it was officially announced as legal in 2019 when the Supreme Court basically said, yeah, you can gerrymander, redistrict for political reasons. As long as you're not doing it based upon racial reasons, basically, then you can do it for political reasons. And so Democrats continued because that wasn't it's sort of like, oh, okay, so they got approval for what they've been doing for a very long time. And I think it was on the show that I noted if every red state that could do it and every blue state that could do it, if they all just did their darndest to redistrict, to gerrymander, to benefit them politically, that Republicans would come out way on top, 10 to 15 seats easily, because Democrats have already done it. There's just so much juice you can get out of that particular fruit, and they've been squeezing it for years. We're starting to squeeze. We're getting juice. Okay. Texas will pick up 5. We'll see what happens in Ohio. We'll see what happens in other states that may respond to the response of Democrat states. But I think we're in good shape with it. And here's the thing. When it comes to gerrymandering, I'm not a fan. When it comes to redistricting for the sake of political reasons, I'm not a fan. But it's legal and it's already been done. So, as Stephen Miller says, this is a corrective effort. Fine. You know what? Everybody go do it. Everybody redistrict, right? And anybody who has enough of a majority in their legislatures, and anybody who has the ability to redistrict for the sake of political reasons, fine. Let's just do it, get it done, get it over with. Everybody does it, and then let's outlaw it. Let's say this is it. If you want to redistrict, you have to have a valid reason to do so. You can't just do it but again, that's in my ideal world, which I know that nothing's ideal sometimes. It's hard to get to an ideal world. Here's a fun one. This is fun. When I say fun to talk about, and definitely not fun to the people involved. This story comes from Live News. Doctors want to change the definition of brain death to harvest more organs. That is what we'll be talking about right after the break here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Chances are very strong that if you watch various shows on conservative or alternative media that you've been told by some various show hosts about free or bonus silver that you will get if you work with their gold companies. Now, I don't blame necessarily these hosts. They just don't know exactly what they're offering. They're just saying what their sponsors tell them to say. Unfortunately for them, and more unfortunately for you, these offers are scams. They just are. And again, I'm not ripping on show hosts that are offering it. I've got a lot of friends that do it, and by golly, they do it for whatever reason they do it. I, on the other hand, work with a company that does not insult your intelligence by pretending to offer you $10,000 in free silver. I work with Augusta Precious Metals, and you can learn more about them, including how the free silver scam operates by going to patriot.tv/silver. That is patriot.tv/silver. Welcome back. Wendy Bell Radio Program. Oh, you WB Army people, you guys are the absolute best. I'm JD Rucker, filling in just last day. She'll be back Monday. She's going to be back Monday. Lord willing, we'll have the great and wonderful, wonderful Wendy Bell back with us. So yeah, doctors, according to Live News, doctors, they want to change the definition of brain dead to harvest more organs. Talk about evil, pure evil, I would say. But let's get into it. In a recent New York Times op-ed, 3 cardiologists from Northwell Health, Doctors Sandeep Juhar, Snehal Patel, and Dean Smith, urge lawmakers to expand the definition of brain death. And I looked into this a bit before we go any further. I would have stopped right there, I did stop right there when I was reading the article. I looked into it and I realized that this is actually far more prominent than any of us realize. Well, at least more prominent than I realized. Okay, it's happening in other countries already, and it is being seriously discussed here in the United States of America, especially certain states that are, I guess you could say, a little bit more caring. You know, one of the founding fathers gave states basically rights over health. Now, of course, that was usurped greatly by Obamacare, and of course then John Roberts, but I'm not going to talk about that today. But yeah, this is actually something to be concerned about. It actually could happen. This isn't just a paper. They're leading in with the paper, but the discussions are real. These doctors propose that patients who have permanently lost higher brain functions such as memory, awareness, and intent, but retain brainstem activity, should be considered legally dead. They ask, quote, once these higher brain functions are irreversibly gone, is it not fair to say that a person has ceased to exist? No, doctor. No, it does not. This argument isn't clinical, it's philosophical, and it opens the door to irreversible harm. The physicians may claim that they intend to ease suffering or save lives, but redefining death around higher functions puts every unresponsive patient at risk of being prematurely classified as a source of organs. It's nothing more than a bad episode of Twilight Zone. Now, I can see that some people, maybe members of this audience, are sitting there thinking, you know what? I mean, if they are basically brain dead, if they don't have, memory, awareness, or intent, they've lost higher brain function, maybe their organs can save lives. It's not like they're going to snap out of that. Well, to those people, I would say this. Number one, yes, they can't snap out of it. They're still alive. And no one can determine when somebody is actually, fully gone until they're fully gone. We've seen time and time. There have been instances where people are literally in the morgue and then they're back, their pulse just wasn't detected. We've seen cases where people have been in their coffins and then they pop up and terrify people. Now, that might have actually just been an episode of Punk'd. I don't remember, but I think that's a real thing. I'm not sure. We'll stick with the morgue people because I'm certain about that one. Okay, there was an episode, of MASH. Oh, that tells you how old I am. There was an episode of MASH where a guy was dead and they thought he was dead, and then I think it was what's his name, the cleric who's looking, he sees a tear coming down the guy's eye. It's like, wait, he's not dead. Don't bury him. And then the reason I bring that up is because we actually saw another episode very similar to that, where a tear caused somebody to think, hey, maybe we should look closer because that dead person's crying, and they, lo and behold, they're alive. So don't tell me that these doctors are able to definitively determine, the brain, which is the most complex portion of our body. They can't even tell if somebody's breathing or not. If their breathing is shallow, they might miss that. their heartbeat is slow or weak, they might miss that. Don't tell me, oh, well, we can determine definitively that this person's brain dead, and therefore we should be able to take their kidneys. Of course, the reason for all this is profit. I mean, I'm going to speak in terms, if you have children in the room, you should maybe not have them, or maybe you should make them listen to this. But our medical system is very much geared towards profit. And here's the thing, the organ transplant industry is a mammoth moneymaker. Not on a whole. Okay, it's nothing compared to like the vaccine industries or anything like that. But because there's only a few players, for every for every plastic surgeon, for every 100 plastic surgeons, there's probably five organ transplant people, right, across the globe. And so this is why in certain countries like China, taking people, kidnapping them and harvesting their organs is done. Why would they go through such a strange and evil practice if it wasn't profitable? Well, the answer is it is profitable. But what these guys are talking about takes it to a new level, because, and this is where I hate to use these terms, but it's the closest thing that I can. This is fresh meat. Okay, these are people that are still breathing. This isn't like somebody who crashed his motorcycle and they're going to try to grab his kidneys or his heart or something. These are people that haven't died. Their bodies are still flowing. This is, again, using weird terms, this is the prime cut of organ transplant meat. And they can sell that for a lot more. They can sell that they can harvest these organs while the person's still alive on demand. Think about that. Think about, we've got this person who needs an emergency transplant, blah, 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 blah. We got your average livers, but we got our kidneys, but we got a fresh kidney over here. It's a good match, only double the price. You're rich. Come on, let's do it. That's the perverse society that we're living in today. And it's heartbreaking to me, because once we start commoditizing the body, and I shouldn't say start because it's already been done, but once we start really taking it to the next level, imagine what happens when technology catches up, when technology is good enough to meet our lowering moral standards as a society. What happens then? What happens when they start thinking along the lines of, we got these death row inmates. I mean, they're going to die anyway, right? They're sentenced to die. Maybe we should give them the option. Give them the option of just letting us harvest their organs, because, hey, maybe we can even compensate their families for it. Or then that evolves into, hey, why should we give them the choice? I mean, they're going to die anyway. They're the ones that committed the crimes, not us. Why should little Timmy over there die because Killer Bob wants to go through 5 more appeals? Well, it's just, done. Just grab him, get his heart. We need his heart to save little Timmy. It's worth it. He killed people. Little Timmy's going to grow up and be an astronaut. I mean, and I'm not going to take this from a religious perspective, even though I have very strong feelings about this based upon my Christian faith. But even just from a moral, ethical, societal perspective, we are supposed to be evolving, right? That's what they say. We're supposed to be getting bigger, better, stronger as a human race. And this ain't it, folks. This ain't it. This isn't the direction that we want to take our nation. Not even close. We don't want anybody in the world doing this. But again, as an America First guy, I only care about whether or not it's happening here, and it should not ever happen here. All right, let's get to something fun. I want a fun story. What do we got now? Here we go. Beautiful. Kremlin confirms that Trump and Putin will meet in the coming days. Yay. I don't even know why I included this one, because there's not much to say. It's like I'm breaking news here from yesterday. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin will meet in the coming days, the Kremlin confirmed Thursday. Putin Foreign Affairs Advisor Yuri Ushakov, there we go, said a location has been chosen, and the officials are aiming to hold the meeting next week in an attempt to get Russia to end its roughly 3-year-long war with Ukraine. Now, I don't know about you. I said yesterday that I won't believe it until I hear President Trump say it. I guess hearing the Kremlin say it, I mean, they said that it's happening, so I couldn't imagine they would come out and say that. So let's say it is. Let's say that this is going to happen and President Trump's going to go there. What is he going to do? What is he going to say? I mentioned yesterday that he's going to try to use leverage, and they're going to try to allow him to use leverage. That way they can get something out of this. They're trying to make this a clean pivot. This has to be a successful war for Russia and for Vladimir Putin, because if the war ends without what they can sell to their own people as success, it's not going to go well. This is Putin's legacy after what, 3 decades of running Russia off and on. You know, he's done a whole bunch of things, but all of that is wiped away if he has to retreat from Ukraine without gaining anything. And while I won't say that he should be immune to such things, he probably should, but he's not. He is in legacy building mode. And so he wants this to be his legacy, a successful legacy. He wants this to be a win. He needs this to be a win. So I would say President Trump has his work cut out for him, but it's going to be a lot easier to get Zelensky and NATO to play ball than it is to give Vladimir Putin. So I'm glad he's starting there. If they can work out a deal and then take it to NATO, and then NATO will tell Zelensky to, it's a good deal, take the deal. You know, you're gonna lose some stuff. Great, it's okay. We'll bring you on. We'll have you bring you on to the UN once they elect your butt out of office. You know, we can't steal this election. You got like a 20% favorability rating. So we're just gonna let you finish off. You're the guy that ended the war, and then we'll bring you on and you can start focusing on climate change, because that's what Zelensky that's his real passion. Trying to fight the so-called climate change. After the break, we got truck drivers getting taken off the road, but for good reasons this time. After the break on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Welcome back to the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I got so stuck in Rumble chat, I didn't even realize that I was on the air. Rookie mistake. Thankfully, we got good stories to talk about. New York Post says Trump critic Jasmine Crockett, my favorite, old Jazzy, is a no-show boss from hell who terrorizes staffers. Aides say that she is all diva. No, wow. Wow, that is a wow. New York Post, according to the New York Post writer, Crockett is not often found at her government-provided suite in the Longworth office building, with one insider who she says that she is always in her luxury apartment building instead. Just kind of hanging out at home, you know, in her PJs and getting ready for the next viral moment, getting herself ready, and I don't know, whatever it is that she does. A quote from one former staffer says she is laying around her apartments, won't come into the office, and is really just indifferent to staff and will scream at them. Well, and that's not uncommon, to be clear. I've noticed that we've seen a trend, especially with Democrats, but some Republicans who just are absolutely brutal with their staffers. A second source close to Crockett said it is widely known that she's not nice with staff and is just not a really dedicated member focused on her constituents. She doesn't care. And you've noticed this. I want you to, unless she's at like a certain types of events, she never talks about what she's going to do for her people. She never talks about what she's going to do for the people in her district. Now her district is disappearing, it looks like, very soon. Praise God for that. But she never talks about that at all. What does she talk about? Donald Trump. That's everything. That's it. She just talks about Donald Trump. I mean, she's Rashida Tlaib all over again. She's early pre-Bernie adoration AOC. Okay, it's worse than being a squad member, though. It's worse than being like a diva. Like, she's taken what the original squad members were doing. She's taking that and escalating it, like magnifying it to the point that there's a lot of people that are talking about her as actually running for president, and which that dumbfounds me in a way. It makes me kind of hopeful in a way that she would run. But then again, what would that say about our nation? What would that say about the Democrat Party? We're already seeing Zoran Mamdani doing his thing. That's already crazy enough. But what if, instead of just mayor of New York City, what if somebody crazy that way made it into the White House? God forbid. According to another staffer, she says she is focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress. Think about that. I mean, she is a good influencer. Okay. She does great on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. She gets lots of followers. AOC did the same thing and still does the same thing. And I think that right now, because you never see the two together, I think that right now there's a little bit of a fight going on, an influencer battle. I think Crockett is trying to eclipse AOC as the queen of Democrat social media. And when I say I think, I would put that at basically a 98% certainty. She is. She's thinking along the lines of, this is the pathway for her to achieve more, to have great power. And here's the funny part, is that I'm not going to say that it's wrong, not for the Democrat. Republican doing it, I would say that's just dumb, because we're Republicans, conservatives, America First Patriots. We're just not as tuned into the whole, give me a minute and a half rant on TikTok. But Democrats are, especially younger Democrats, and they're trying their best. They, being the quote unquote influencers, are trying their best to not only reach current voters, but to reach future voters as well. Now, thankfully, I've seen stats that show that it's not working, but I'll talk about that some other day. Here, for today's show, the point here is that, yes, I think that there's a fight, a quiet fight, maybe not even nothing. There's a jealousy and then a defensiveness. On one hand, you got Jasmine Crockett wanting desperately to be the influencer amongst Democrats, and AOC, the reigning queen of that. Will there ever be a rift between them? Is there already? Who knows? After the break, got California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton joining us right here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program.
Freeze drying again?
Never know what could happen.
Whatever the future may bring, dinner can be certain.
Visit patriot.tv/harvest today.
Generally speaking, I don't like to rip on other conservative show hosts out there. I don't agree with them all the time, but I agree with most of them most of the time, so that's good, right? One thing I don't like is the fact that most of them, if not all of them, just about all of them, will utilize fear-mongering to promote their precious metal sponsor, their gold sponsor. Oh, the sky is falling. It's doom and gloom. Cats and dogs living together. They just want you to do whatever you can to get that quote-unquote free silver. Well, if you are sick of that, if you want to work with a company that I work with, a company that Patriot TV works with, a company that does not use fear-mongering or scare techniques or high-pressure sales tactics to try to get you to buy, then go to patriot.tv/gold. patriot.tv/gold and talk to my friends over at Augusta Precious Metals. You will notice they are very different. And we are back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. I'm your your guest host, JD Rucker, and I am joined by a very, very special guest, somebody that I've been talking to for a while and really wanted to get his perspective. We've got Steve Hilton, candidate for the governor of California. Steve, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Good to be with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I'm not going to go into an intro because we don't have a ton of time. I will just say this. Everybody go to stevehiltonforgovernor.com, and there's an incredible story. I mean, I actually know now more about you than I think you know about yourself after reading the Meet Steve Hilton portion. So stevehiltonforgovernor.com and check that out. So I'll start with an easy question, Steve. Can you win as a conservative, as a patriot, as somebody who actually loves America? Can you really win in California?
I think it's the only way we can win, with a really strong, clear, common sense conservative message that brings together the kind of working class movement for change that we've seen across the country for President Trump. I mean, that is what this is all about, because it's regular working people and families, small businesses that have been screwed the most by this insane far left 15 years of one party rule. And you talk about communism and so on. I mean, my parents were, they're Hungarian and they left communism in Hungary. And I was born in England, a free country, but one in decline. And then I moved here with my wife and my two sons in 2012, became an American in 2021. I've run businesses, including restaurants. So I know what small businesses in California are going through. I've worked at in the senior level of the government. I was senior advisor to the Prime Minister in the UK. I've known what it's like to take on the system and fight bureaucracy. And that's what we need to do here in California. And the only way we do it is to be really clear. I mean, people say it's impossible for a Republican to win in California. There's not enough Republican votes. Let me explain just very quickly why that's not true. So next year in California, it's a midterm election, just like everywhere else. Midterm election, you have a lower turnout. If you take the average of the last two midterm elections to try and project what it will be next year, total number of votes in California, we can expect around 11.8 million. That's the average of the last two. So to win, you need just over half of that. Let's call it 5.9 million votes. Here's the important number. Last year in California, 2024, President Trump, without even campaigning here really, got 6.1 million votes. There are more than enough Republican votes in California. We just need to get them to show up and turn out in a governor's race in midterm. Then we can stop this decline. We can save our beautiful golden state and turn things around. And that's what this campaign I'm running is all about, is firing up everyone who's sick of this nonsense, the costs and the hassle and the far left ideology on every single issue that have made us, we got the highest unemployment in the country, the highest poverty rate, homelessness, crime out of control. All of that can be turned around. We just need to go and fire people up and get that result next year. I'm very confident I can do it. It's not going to be easy, but I know we can do it.
I'm very hopeful that you can too, and I would be willing to help. I lived for a little while temporarily in East Hollywood, and so I was witness to the rampant homelessness that was happening there. And that was back in that was like almost a decade ago. So I know it's gotten much, much worse. So then, you're talking about common sense policies that make sense here in California. It's not like you have to go out there and say, we're going to build a wall. No, you have to have common sense policies in order to appeal to the masses. So here's my question then. What will you do? Let's say we're able to pull it off. Let's say we're able to get you elected as governor. What would you do to try to turn things around? Because it's easy to say, we're going to stop the wokeness. We're going to stop the idiocy. We're going to stop but give me something. Give me something concrete.
Yeah, I'll give you a few things. So first of all, remember that we will still probably have a legislature that's controlled by the Democrats because of gerrymandering. So they have this 2/3 majority. That is not a legitimate majority. That is the product of gerrymandering. I don't want to get into that whole redistricting argument. Maybe we can do that later. But I've been all over that because right now, when it comes to the House seats, because of Democrat gerrymandering in California, if we had fair representation in California, we would have another 12 House seats and a similar kind of proportion in the state legislature. But we don't have that. So let's assume we have the Democrats still running the state legislature when I'm the governor, starting in early 2027. The good news is that I will be running the executive branch, all the agencies, the bureaucracies. And when I'm on the road the whole time in California, sitting down, listening to people's stories, talking with businesses, small businesses in particular. And so much of the nonsense and the hassle and the cost, it's coming from these agencies. The Coastal Commission, CARB, the Air Resources Board that's pushing, banning gas stoves and gas cars and the price of gas going through the roof. In the Central Valley, the State Water Resources Control Board that's taking money from our great farmers and crushing this amazing industry. Our oil and gas industry, especially down at the southern end of the Central Valley in Kern County, that's being crushed by CalGEM. That's an agency that's denying permits to maintain existing oil wells, to expand them, to drill new ones, on and on. There are 239 state agencies, and I will have over 4,000 appointments. That's how you get into it and start turning things around. Here's a couple of specific examples. Number one, gas. We have the highest gas prices in the country. That is the direct result of all these regulations. I'm going to get rid of all that. We're going to get rid of the low carbon fuel standard, the cap and trade taxes, the refinery regulations that mean we have these ridiculous winter blends, some of them, all these complicated regulations on our refineries. When you put all that together, instead of the $5 gas that we have now heading to $6, $7, or even $8, we're going to have $3 gas. That's my policy, $3 gas. You look at other areas where we can make similar specific changes through changing the people in charge of these agencies. The State Board of Education, just this week, I was talking about how we're going to turn around our public schools. We have the worst results on third grade reading, which is the most important issue for kids' future prospects in the country, because we're not teaching kids to read in school. Instead, they're pushing all this nonsense. I appoint all 12 members of the State Board of Education. I'm going to clear out the ideologues, put in common sense, practical people who represent what parents want. We're going to change the curriculum. So we teach kids to read using phonics, which is the technique that works, the science of reading. So in each of these policy areas, I could go on all day about them because I've been doing the work. It's very specific, practical changes, and you're using the mechanism of the state bureaucracy, which is what Gavin Newsom and the Democrats have used to make California the most expensive, the most difficult place to get anything done in the country. We can start turning that around.
Nice. That's excellent. We're on with Steve Hilton, a Republican candidate for governor here in California. I often say that we're California, right? I make the joke. I live out here myself, and it's like, oh, it's horrible. It's not horrible. And it can be recovered. I truly believe that. And so that message of real hope, because I think a lot of people are really losing faith in that. You're out there giving that type of message. And what has been the response so far? I mean, obviously, if you exclude the extreme, the people that love you, and you exclude the people that are like, no way, you're a fascist. What has been, just out there? Because you're out there talking to the people every day. I see you talking to the people. What are they saying? I mean, what are their concerns, and what is their response to you possibly coming in and becoming the leader of this wonderful state?
It's really, well, there's two things I'd say. First of all, there's this, what I'm getting from people is very interesting. You see it, whether it's a big meeting or just one-on-one, and the word that captures how people are feeling right now, whether that's an individual or family or business owner or whatever, small business person, the word that I just take away from all these meetings is struggle. It's such a struggle in California to, just pay the rent, to keep the budget together when the rents, housing is the most expensive in the country, electricity bills, more than doubling, water, all these things, insurance, it's so expensive. People are struggling so much. Business owners, endless hassle and red tape and nonsense from the state government and local. So and to me, when I'm seeing it in people's eyes, there's such pain and struggle, and to me that makes me incredibly sad, but also really angry because they're really hurting people. So when I start saying, actually, it doesn't have to be like this. We can change it. You just got to vote for change and put me in, and I can start chopping away this bloated nanny state BS bureaucratic government, and we can have $3 gas. You can actually have a home of your, afford a single family home by ending this war on single family homes, where they want everyone to live in apartments above transit, no parking. That's not the California dream. We just have to stop the ridiculous environmental extremism coming out of CARB, the Air Resources Board. I go through the issues one by one, and people we haven't heard anyone talk like that. We haven't heard that everyone's just got resigned, I think, to this idea that it's just, this is the way it is in California, and either you put up with it or you leave. I say, no, why should we leave? We didn't do this to our state. The people who did this should leave office. That's what needs to happen. And so I'm getting real energy from out there. People just, there's a movement for change. It's early. I don't want to overstate it. We're just getting going. But I'm feeling very, very optimistic that we can pull this off.
Well, you're making a believer out of me, that's for sure, and hopefully my audience as well. Let's say that you have, all right? And this is my final question for you, Steve Hilton. Let's say that you're able to really get this message out there. You're reaching a fantastic and wide audience here across the country here on the Wendy Bell Radio Program right now. What is the best thing that they can do? Like finish off by telling us what we need to do to help you make California amazing again.
Well, first of all, the theme of my campaign, golden again. That's what we're going to do. It's the golden state. We're going to make California golden again. We can't let this beautiful state just sink into stagnation and decline. It's our responsibility. So actually, everyone across the country has an interest in that, because so much of the crazy bad stuff that's infected the rest of America, it starts here in California. The Green New Deal, the woke nonsense in the schools, all the gender extremism, ballot harvesting, endless minimum wage. They're talking about $30 minimum wage now in Los Angeles. All the craziness, it really does start in California. So if we beat it here, we can save you the effort of having to beat it across the rest of the country. So I really would love people to get involved with the campaign. You can sign up to volunteer. Tell your friends, even if you're not in California, say, get behind Steve Hilton. He's the one. I'm in the lead in all the polls. Basically, it's a 2-horse race now. The polls are pretty consistent. It's me and Katie Porter. It's a 2-horse race now for governor. We don't need her. It's going to make it all a hell of a lot worse. And so Steve Hilton for governor, we need money to beat this Democrat machine, because they got the unions, they've got all the kind of woke tech billionaires. There's just a lot of, I call it the Democrat industrial complex. The machine politicians like Kamala Harris, Karen Bass, Newsom, all these people who just, the unions that fund them, the activists who give them their ideological instructions, the bureaucrats that implement all of this. It's the Democrat industrial complex. That's what we've got to beat. And I would love people's help. Steve Hilton for governor.com.
Steve Hilton for governor.com. And the motto that, as far as I see it now, is California, if we can beat them there, we can beat them anywhere.
Exactly. So there you go.
I like this concept. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. God bless him. God bless him. What a great guy. I have never met him in person, but I used to watch his show when he was on Fox News, and it was like, wow, he's good. So we'll be right back on the Wendy Bell Radio Program. Stay tuned. And we're back for the final segment of JD Rucker, filling in, doing the best I can to keep the seat warm until she gets back, filling in for the great Wendy Bell and the Wendy Bell Radio Network. I'm super sad because this is it. This is the final few minutes. But I would say this. I think the themes of these last 2 days, they still definitely apply. I'm telling you, there are certain things that you can do, and I always encourage activism. I encourage people to get up off their couch, and if you don't like your politicians, then you become a politician, even if it's only temporarily. You run for office. You form an organization. You form a PAC. You do this. You work with people around you, people that you know, people that you trust, people that you love. Work with them. Do everything you can to do that. And that's for some people. For others, It might be something completely different. There's so many things that we can do. Okay. But do something. And again, I think I opened the show by saying the best thing that you can do, if you're not one of those people that you're never going to run for office, maybe you don't have the resources necessarily to donate money to this politician or that cause or this PAC, or maybe you just don't trust them, right? No big deal. There's still things that you can do. And I would say that the very minimum that we should do is try to improve ourselves. Try to improve your situation, your family situation, your community. You should do that whether you're, regardless of who's in office or what you're trying to do. But by doing that, I want you to remember that by doing that, you are actually having an impact on the United States of America. Your prosperity is this nation's prosperity. We're not living in a communist nation yet. We're not living in a dictatorship yet. We're not living in a place where your productivity is stolen from you. And I shouldn't say the productivity, the benefits of your productivity is stolen from you, other than if you include taxes, which is theft, but whatever. We don't live there yet, but we could. My earlier segment, I stand by that one. That segment where I said that if the Democrats ever get into power, then they're probably going to do things that will make it impossible for them to ever be taken out of power again. That's just the facts. So we can't let that happen. We need to be fighting. During the President Trump's first term, we got complacent, I think. We did. We thought, mission accomplished. We got him elected. Now let him cook. We didn't do our part. And to be fair, not to exclude him from blame, he was, whether because he was new to the job, naive, whatever, he didn't do all of his part either. His cabinet, oftentimes, were working against him. Congress did jack. Oh, yeah, but before the election, they were able to get the tax cut passed. Okay, but they didn't do anything else. They didn't build the wall. They didn't stop Obamacare. Everything they'd been promising for years, they couldn't get done once they had President Trump. But again, we didn't help either. And I'm not talking about, maybe you as an individual, maybe you were out there fighting every day. Maybe you ran for office. I know people who did. Maybe you were forming groups, knocking on doors, standing on corners with signs, going to offices, picketing, sending emails, sending letters, calling your congressman, calling your senators. I don't want to say that nobody did anything good, but obviously not nearly enough of us did. But then I remember also an important note, and this is the note that I hope you remember about me. If we had our way, if, all of us who are Trump supporters, if we could have just imposed our will on the situation, if we had a magic wand and we could say, 2020 election, feels like this election was stolen, but we're gonna expose the evidence. We're gonna redeem President Trump. We're going to get all this stuff out there and reverse this stolen election and not have Joe Biden in office and have President Trump rightly put into office. 99.999% of us would have been like, yeah, let's do that. If we can fix it, let's fix it. Let's expose the Democrats. Let's expose the voter fraud. Let's get President Trump back in office. But like I was saying in January of 2021, I said, look, it's not our choice. This is God's will. And if we had our way, things might not be as good today as they are. If we had our way, President Trump might not be in office today. Wouldn't be. So it is God's will. Lord willing, I'll be back Sunday with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless. Food security really is a national security issue. It's undeniable. It's been that way since the dawn of humanity. Any nation that can feed its people is in better shape than a nation that cannot. But it's not just at the national level. Food security is something that we as Americans should take responsibility for, should be reliant on ourselves for as much as possible. Now, I'm a huge fan of truly taking care of yourself, right? I mean, getting not necessarily off-grid, but maybe off-grid, getting yourself a homestead or at least a big garden, get yourself some chickens or goats or whatever, cows if you can, if you've got the space, and making sure that you can feed yourself, feed your family, and then, if you have abundance, that you can help to feed your community. It should be localized as much as possible. And if you don't have the ability to do that, so be it. Work with your local farmers and local ranchers. These are things that we as Americans should be doing in preparation for whatever's to come. And here's the thing. Let's say nothing bad happens. Awesome. Praise God. It's still good to know your local ranchers, your local farmers, or to be growing your own food as much as possible. But for many of us, being able to secure that is just not as easy as going out and getting a homestead. It's one of the reasons that I work very closely with my very good friends over at Heaven's Harvest. They have done a fantastic job of putting together a true long-term storage food solution. That is, it's all American. They use heirloom seeds. They only use the good stuff. They produce the types of food buckets and food bags and heirloom seeds that Americans need. Go to patriot.tv/food, patriot.tv/food. Use promo code Patriot, and you'll get a very nice discount. And really, take advantage. Take advantage of this discount. Take advantage of this opportunity before it's too late.